G'day podcasters, welcome back to Season 6 of True Blue Conversations with your host Adam Bloom, the author of Easy Target, now available at adambloom.com.au. 8 years ago, after returning from 3 tours of Afghanistan and then gaining experience and education in financial planning, Warren Loudon teamed up with fellow veteran Dave Vaughan and started Loudon & Vaughan Private Wealth, founded with the underlying belief that every person matters and every dollar counts, providing comprehensive tailored financial advice and wealth management services for you and your family. Loudon & Vaughan will guide you towards your financial goals with integrity and transparency. Whether you're planning for retirement, investing for the future, or managing your family's wealth, they've got you covered. Visit loudonandvaughan.com.au or call 02 9538 2704 to book a meeting with Warren today.
G'day, welcome back to True Blue. Well, today I'm coming to you live from beautiful Sydney Harbour, and I've got a guest on that we've been teeing this podcast up for a long time now, and he's known across Australia, or probably around the world, and if you don't know who he is, you will by the end of this. And he was portrayed in the media as a bloodthirsting murderer, which is far from the truth. And I've been teeing this podcast up for a long time to let him say his story and his side. And we've been mates for a little while now, and it's an absolute privilege to have him on the podcast. Zach Rolfe, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Brother, thank you for having me.
Mate, as I said, you're well known. We're going to get to the incident a little bit later and how you've been treated and how most of Australia portrays you. But, mate, before that, let's go back. Let's go back to a young Zach and talk me through life growing up.
I grew up in Canberra. I have 2 older brothers. Mum and Dad, grew up with the whole family. Mum was a lawyer in Canberra. Dad was in the car industry. I went to Canberra Grammar School, which is a private school in Canberra. I pretty much went there my whole schooling. I was just a normal kid. Everything was good, just focused on sport. But yeah, it was a good childhood.
And for you, what were you like at school? Were you pretty good at school?
I was good. Like, I got pretty good results, but the schooling, like the actual education, was never my focus. In hindsight, I would have loved to put a little bit more effort in. Yeah. But I guess during school, my focus was the weekends. My focus was footy, was boxing, was my mates. But yeah, I still got good enough results, but I just didn't. That was not my focus.
So for you, like, you know, we grew up at a time, mate, that we were 90s kids, so yeah. Technology we were the last before what kids have today is just a totally different generation of the old dial-up internet, the old phone boxes, and, you know, like, you come home at the, you know, when the street lights are on, different times. And for you, did you, like, have any family members that had served in defence before you, or were you the first?
Nah, both my granddad and my grandpa were both in. Grandpa was in the army, he was a truckie. Granddad was in the Navy, he was a chopper pilot in the Navy.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So, yeah, we did have a bit, but as you know, with that generation, there was no talk about the time in, about their deployments and all that kind of stuff. So it was there, but it wasn't really spoken about too much, about what has gone on. So
for you, did you feel that you had, like, you know, everyone's got a, like, everyone that I've had on the podcast, whether it's veteran or first responder, the root, what I get back to is everyone is giving of service. Like, where did that come from for you? Like, because you know, you're fit, boxing, you know, rugby. I played rugby as well, so good sport. And where did that come from?
I'm not sure. I think it was always intrinsic, but it was also always, like, part of, I guess, my family values. It was always there to, like, you know, defend the good against, like, defend, like, those who are being bullied.
Yep.
So it's intrinsic, but it was always part of, like, the...
So it was always there in the background.
It was always there. It's part of the family mentality and stuff like that as well. And then I know you can do that in different ways. Some people go first responder, some people go medical, some people go... There's so many avenues you can do that. For me, I think the end goal was always going to be the police. But I just didn't feel that after school that I was ready to step into that role. And I think the army was just always a natural thing for me to do.
Yeah.
It was a natural progression for me to do after school, because I never wanted to, at that point, open a book again in regard to studying. So there was no chance that I was going to go to uni. So the army was a natural progression for the next point in my life.
And, you know, you and I growing up, we all remember where we were on September 11.
Yeah.
Was that also like a factor in your mind, or because we were so young? Like, I was 8, and where were you on that day, and what do you remember of 9/11?
Yeah, I was in school. I was in year 4, if I remember correctly. I remember we just got pulled into the classrooms, and obviously it's shown on TV. I think it was a factor, and it was more so, I think, as a, you know, in a younger mental, like a younger state, you're thinking, oh, there's like evil out there overseas, and we need to go fight that evil. Then you grow up and you realise that there's evil all around us. And I remember, for me, a lot down the track, I remember being over in Afghan and being like, obviously, and we'll touch on it, we'll get to it, my mate got killed over in Afghan.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking at some point, like, why die over here in a country that doesn't want us here, basically,
and doesn't care,
when, like, there's shit going on back home where people need to be protected back home in Australia as well. So that was kind of towards the end of my time in the army as well. So yeah, you can see how it progresses. For sure.
And because I remember, mate, like, I thought that day, I thought it was a movie. Like, I was like, oh, cool, this is a good movie. And then it wasn't until I realised, and, you know, I was 8 at the time, when people were jumping out of the building, I was like, oh shit, this isn't a movie. And then when you watch the second plane go, because I'm like, where's Cheese TV? Like,
exactly.
Where's Cheese TV? And then there was no Cheese TV, and mate, that day changed the world. And like, back then, you know, you're in year 4.
Yeah.
You wouldn't foresee that you would be in Afghanistan when you're deployed. Like, it's major shift. Like, it changed everyone's life if you join the military. And so talk me through that process, mate. You finish school, and then you leave school and join the army straight away. So talk me through that process. 1901, 2010?
Yeah, once you make that decision to start going down that process, it moved pretty quickly. So I think from start to finish was probably only a few months.
Oh, wow.
I think. So I'd been working some odd jobs for straight after school, started the application process, general infantry. So I went overseas, basically just by myself, again, to get out of the comfort zone. Like, I was always chasing situations where I was out of my comfort zone, because I knew that's how you had to grow. And even though an overseas trip is awesome, at 18 by yourself, it's still, you know, it's a bit scary, a bit out there. Went overseas real quickly to have a bit of a holiday, and then came back and straight up to Kapuka.
Yeah, right. Talk me through that, mate, because, you know, you've gone, as you said, you've gone to that private school. Yeah. Discipline is, because I went to a Catholic school myself, and I know that discipline, they were very big on discipline. When you got to Kapuka, and I've spoken to numerous veterans on the podcast, some of them struggled with the discipline. How were you? Because you'd had that in the school.
I think it was probably very magnified. My school probably wasn't that disciplined looking back on it, especially in year 11 and 12. At the time, if you're kind of good at footy, you kind of got
a bit of a little bit
of leeway. So I couldn't say that I couldn't pretend that I was very disciplined in school at all. But Kapuka, for me, obviously it's completely conditioning you to go from civilian life into the army. And I mentioned it before, like I didn't understand the process at the time. So my mindset going through Kapuka, I was very bored. You're up at 6 a.m, you go to bed at 10 p.m. basically. If you're not learning something like that, you are put through tasks to condition yourself to be bored, to follow orders. And being there at 18 or 19, I didn't have the understanding of the why. And you don't need the understanding of the why.
That comes later.
That comes later, for sure. But at the time, I didn't understand the why. So I was... Look, it was discipline, that was fine, but it was, to me, that 80 days was I was happy to be done with it. I didn't realise what I got out of it while I was there. I was just... figured it was easy, I'm wasting my time. I think a lot of the people... Yeah. But a lot of people have different experiences while they're at Kapuka.
I think most veterans I've spoken to, mate, say that they knew, like, most of them knew it was a game, and it was the next step that they needed to get to progress their career.
Correct.
So, you finished Kapuka, mate, and did you learn anything about yourself while you're at Kapuka that you didn't already know, or...
Not looking back on it, not that I can recall, but I think there's just a steady growth. I say that, like... I've said it before, and I think it's the correct way to say that like the army kind of grew me up.
Yeah.
Like that 5-year period in the army, that's where I grew up so much more than before, because it is so out of your comfort zone. There is so much just a change and pressures and learning, and so I grew up a lot in the army, and that started in Kapuka.
The military are great at that. They break you down and
yeah, exactly.
They take the civilian out of you and mould you how they want.
Correct.
So you do that, mate, and then you pass out. Does mum and dad and the family come down to see you pass out?
Yeah, I think it was my mum and dad and both sets of grandparents who were still around at that point. I think that was them. So it was a good, nice day, and then straight from there to
Singo, mate. And like we'll talk about. Like, we're not going to go deep into Singo, but you've gone to Kapuka, and most people that I speak to when they go infantry, they go to Singo. And so for the non-military listeners, Singleton, that's where your initial employment training is for infantrymen. Mate, if like most people have said, they thought Kapuka was a shock, what was Singo like? I think
it's fairly standard, my version of events. I'm so indoctrinated by like core processes by this point. My time there is very similar to a lot of other people's, where Kapuka's a bit boring, Singo was a lot better. Singo's fun. You're learning your actual skill set now. You're within a group of people that have the more similar mindset. You all want to be the infantry. You're all learning skills that are actually relevant to your job. You know, you're shooting, you're blowing things up, you're doing PT. So that 3 months was good, and it's just that was a good time. And
is that for you, mate? Are you up at Singo? Are they going? Because Afghanistan's raging at this point. Like we're losing guys. You're turning the news on. There's another death in Afghanistan. Another death. At the time, that what you can remember, are they saying to you guys, well, you're training for war? Is that how it felt?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was definitely that, but I don't think there was this... I don't remember a expectation from us that... Like, there was a hope, but not an expectation that as soon as we get to battalion, we'd deploy. There was a hope. I remember one of the boys, I think he went to 7 straight after, and he was the earliest one of our crew to get a trip, and he got it within, like, the first 6 months.
Oh, wow, yeah, right.
And obviously that's... A lot of us were like, that's what we wanted, but there was no expectation that would occur, but there was the hope that we would get on deployment pretty quickly.
And are you, at that point, are you guys allocated to a battalion, or did you get to choose your preference?
We did get to choose our preference, and I think basically somehow everyone that I can remember got their preference. Me and a few of my tight crew, we decided to go to 1 up to Townsville.
What was that like, mate? Because Canberra, cold, at the best of times. Again. Bang, you're in Townsville. Like, climate change. How's that?
Yeah, it was different. I remember just sweating for about 6 months straight. But again, everyone was sweating, so it didn't matter. But again, I think it was like, I don't know, I think maybe a few of our instructors were from 1, and they talked it up, so you just go, it sounds like they say it's the best, so we want to go to where the best is, and every battalion's probably the exact same or similar enough. So we went up to 1, and I wanted to get away. Again, I wanted to get away as far from Canberra as possible, not because anything against Canberra, just because I wanted to be on my own, do that whole adventure by myself.
We want to start living your own life.
Exactly. So moved up to Townsville after that.
So you get there, mate, and what's happening at battalion when you get there? Are they just training, and this is where you actually get to start putting your field craft, like what you've learned at Singo, Kapuka, all in one?
There was a lot of training going on for us, but a lot of the more senior boys had just got back from deployment because a few of the boys got killed overseas. So there was a lot of, like, some real war fighters came back, and there was a bit of probably anger from them, which is obviously how you're going to come back when your mates get killed. And again, you're the new guy, so you're not in that circle, but you can kind of see, you can kind of feel it. We went straight into a lot of training. Initially, there were some courses we got put on, nothing exciting, but then for the next, turns out, like 4 years or 3.5 or 4 years, it was just training. For me, my job for the next 4 years was training. So,
which is, I've heard, like, because, and this is the thing, like, I highlight to our non-military listeners, is, in a sense, mate, you were lucky. I don't know whether luck's the right word, but you joined at our most busiest time in military history of Australians deploying overseas. Like there was from 2001 to 2021.
Yeah.
There was deployments going everywhere, and if you missed it, like if you didn't get a trip, there was something wrong. Like there was, and you know, people who joined before you, who joined in the 90s or the late 80s, were peacetime. You're joining in wartime, so that's the hopes in the back of your mind that you're going to join, like you're going to go.
Yeah.
So you're training, and then, mate, in 2012, this is where really you start to face your first bit of adversity, where a good friend of yours, he's murdered over in Afghanistan, and Robert Pope and Pody, and he was a good childhood friend, mate. Talk me through this, and what do you remember of that day?
So Pody and I grew up together, and he was a couple of years older than me in school, so we had that crossover in playing footy, because I'd played up, he played down, and then as we got older, like we were just, a couple of the girls we were dating, we were good mates, so we'd be over at their places, they lived together the whole time, and just a really good dude. I don't think there's anyone saying anything bad about Pody. Like it was just a proper Aussie good dude. I remember that day. It was the same day or around the same time that it got notified that the other boys got killed in the chopper crash over that 24-hour period.
Yeah, our worst loss of life since the Vietnam War. So 29th and 30th of August.
So I remember I was actually with a couple of the boys who were really good mates with Nate, and they got the call, and I didn't know Nate personally, and then so they just start, you know, they're devastated, and then about half an hour after that call, I got a call from one of my mates telling me about Pody, and it's just something that you're just not even thinking about, because Pody came up for his pre-deployment training to Townsville before he head off, so I saw him just before he left, and I just remember being like, obviously devastated, and then just so angry. I went for a run that night, and I just ran until I passed out. Like got back in the door, opened the door, just collapsed, and just that anger and just like the desire to be there, to wish that you were there, to be able to be with him, to be able to like try and protect him, to try and like, and again, honestly, to put a hole in Matula, that motherfucker. And like that's what you feel. Like that's what you want to do, and that's what.
Well, mate, and I don't like, you know, and we're going to get down the track, we're going to get to what happened when you joined the police, and but what people have got to realise too is that these people, they're not human beings. Like you've been there, you've seen, like you've been over to Afghanistan. The Taliban are not, you know, they're not nice people. They're, you know, and you, like, you know, and when you joined them, like when you joined up, and I know Pody joined up as well. There is that risk that, yes, you're going to a war zone, you could be killed, but you don't expect to be murdered on a green on blue, sitting down playing cards, for Christ's sake. Like, you know, that should, it just, and
Pody was one of the best guys, you know, like, you know that he wouldn't have a bad thought in his heart when he was sitting down with those boys after every patrol. He would have been trying to, like, engage, like, opposite of me. When I was an Afghan, and partly because of the insider attacks, and definitely because of Pody, I did not have time for you if you're a local, basically. That was one of my defences. Like, I was like, you might be an insider, I don't trust you. And that lack of trust was a defence mechanism for me. It was a tactic. But a few years earlier, the insider attack, I guess the risk, the thought of it wasn't there with the boys, and he would have had just good intentions in his heart, trying to make the world a better place, trying to make that place over there a better place. And got murdered while he was playing cards at the end of the day.
And I think when you deployed, and we're going to get to that in a minute, towards the back half of, like, you know, 2011, 2012, 2013, there was more threat of getting killed on the inside of the wire than there was. So the insider attacks were happening more than, you know, going outside the wire. And I understand why you're on guard, mate, because you would be, because, you know, like, it's like, and they realise that, well, eventually we're going to pull out, so how can we best get at these, how can we get at the coalition forces? We'll get insider attacks, and, you know, that piece, and that piece of shit, you know, and I've met Robbie's dad, and
they're the best people.
They're lovely people, mate, and just, you know, and his fight for what, you know, to bring justice is, you know, and and mate, all I have to say is rest in peace to all those boys. They,
100%.
you know, they made the ultimate sacrifice, and we never forget them. And for you, that's really the first time, like, you've had to face that adversity. For you, you lose your mate, and it's like, now I want to get in the fight. Like, I want to be over there. And so in 2014, mate, so Robbie's killed, and then 2014, mate, you deploy, and what do you remember of your time in Afghanistan?
Yeah, we went on a force protection element, so we it's hardly war fighting, but we were over there in Afghan, and our job over there was to provide protection for the mentors, in our case particular, who were trying to, I guess, upskill the Afghan National Army to become a force that could look after itself once we evac'd. So the main threat was inside attacks. That's what we were looking for. But you can't, like, you're playing defense again. But it was good. We were stoked to go over there to actually be working. Like, there's we'd been training for the last 4 years, and this 7-month deployment was the first time we'd worked. So you're training for 4 years, but you haven't actually really worked.
Yeah.
So we were just happy to be working. Look, it's a beautiful country, and even though, like, my guard was so high up, some of the locals are beautiful people, and a lot of the locals are just being used and abused by the Taliban themselves, and that's how a lot of the inside attacks are occurring as well. Not all of them, obviously, but beautiful place, very different culturally, but it was understandable because we knew, like, I guess the rules over there, the cultural rules, you know what they are.
Yeah,
they're different than ours, but you know what they are. So yeah, it was just good to get over there and get to work.
And for you, because, you know, we live in Australia, man. Australia is very different to, as you say, that culture is very different. When you're over there, does it make you appreciate how good how blessed we are to live in the country that we live in? Like, when you're over there,
100%. But, like, that was years ago. Australia's gone down a very strange path right now.
Oh, it is, mate. Yeah, definitely.
So Australia's a weird joint right now, but again, it's still an amazing place. We can talk. It's just going down a weird path right now.
Yeah. It's. We'll talk about that later on in the podcast. We'll get into that with the like, policing and everything and how that's changed.
But yeah, back then, 100%. You go. Yeah. Everyone should be so appreciative of what we got in Australia. You know, women allowed to go to school. We had because one of our soldiers, she came over and she was doing a role over there in our FOB. And sometimes she'd train and she'd run around the outskirts or the inside of the wire. And some of the interpreters would be like, just shocked. She'd be like, how is she fit? How is she running? Because their women, for example, weren't allowed to, like, basically leave the house, or definitely not allowed to go to the gym and work out and have that freedom. So there was, like, just shocks in how the women were treated over there. I mentioned before that the mentors or the bosses of the army, the Western Army, decided that we're going to, like, slingshot the tribal society into democracy. And one of the ways we should do that is obviously DEI. We'll give Afghans some DEI, and we'll create the first platoon of Afghan women officers. And again, nice words, rainbow words on paper, but when you put a group of 30 women in a tent in the middle of the Afghan National Army camp, and those women start getting abused, start getting raped, you got to build a wire around there. Like, you got to put them in a cage to protect them, and then the high ups just go, still fairy. This is all lovely, very lovely things. The world's a beautiful place. They're not on the ground. They don't see. We see what that does. To those poor women, and that obviously doesn't happen in Australia. It's like Australia is an amazing place, and we should be grateful and appreciative to live here and protect our culture. So
and with that too, like, when you're deploying over there, as you say, you're grateful to get in and do your job. Like, you've been, as you said, you've been training for 4 years. The kinetic fighting's really sort of dried up at this point. Like, and like, a lot of people wouldn't realise that we were still deploying over there long after 2013, and you know, so the kinetic sort of stuff's, there's still that heightened risk. Like, there's still, and you guys, are you guys in, like, oh shit, I forgot where we
were in
Kabul?
Camp Karga.
Camp
Karga. So you fly into Kabul. Kabul's got a massive airbase on one side of it. On the other side of it, basically on the outskirts, is Camp Karga, where it's our FOB, by my recollection, it was probably about the size of 2 or 3 like footy ovals. Big Hessian walls around it. And then around our FOB on, like, one side of it, not far away at all, was like the side of Kabul. Like, you could throw a stone to it and hit the side of the city. The other side of it's like basically desert, and that's where the ANA camp was. So yeah, little fob, not much going on. We're definitely not like the airfield where you can we'd try to jump on the runs to get to the airfield. You know, you can at the airfield you could get burgers, you could get massages. There's a different world there. There's gyms there and stuff like that. Yeah, we didn't have that.
Yeah,
we were on a 3-week work rotation. 1 week was base defence. And it got to the point where, because it was mostly just us infantry boys, there's obviously a lot of different people on base, but it was 1 week on base defence, 1 week on QRF, 1 week on force protection. Base defence was basically, it got to the point where it was 8 hours on, 8 hours off. 8 hours on, you'd just be in a concrete tower, just watching the desert, just hating life. And then 8 hours off, you try to rest, eat, try to get the gym in if you can. QRF, that's basically an easy week. You just hang out in the QRF room waiting to see if you need to be support, show support. And then the force protection week is the week where you go out and you're on the ground helping the mentors or just looking after the mentors.
And at that point, when you're over there, and Afghanistan fell in the way it did in 2021, when you were over there in 6 years previous, could you see that the writing was on the wall and it was going to happen? Like, could you see that when you were there?
Pretty much, yeah. I think pretty much you could see it the whole time. Or, yeah, I'd just say yeah.
Yeah, because I know a lot of the guys that I've had on just said, yeah, mate, we knew that, and you speak to a lot of the SF guys, and you know a lot of the SF guys as well, that they said there was no strategic exit plan. It was just, we'll just exit, like we'll just leave, and if anything now the country's worse off, if anything the Taliban now they're more equipped because they've just got more things.
It was a crazy way to leave. But I think when we were over there, it's the same thing. A lot of the boys are so, and fair enough, jaded, and they've got a lot of probably anger inside of them and stuff, or disappointment, because they, from what I saw as an infantry soldier, they just weren't actually utilised to do their job. So they're over there, and we all had these thoughts of what we're going to do, and we're going to go over there and make it better and fight Taliban, and not just to fight Taliban, but because, as you said before, Taliban are pieces of shit, and the way the things that they were doing to civilians over there.
100%.
So you want to help the civilians, but you just weren't able to do your job.
You were very hamstrung.
100%.
And I've really seen that with the SF guys I've had on.
Yeah.
They got frustrated in the end for jobs that you guys, the infantry, could have done, but the politics in that of where it was the government at the time couldn't get their heads around that losing an SF soldier was in their books okay, and I'm quoting here, like I'm paraphrasing, than a young infantry, 20-year-old infantry soldier that, and a lot of the SF guys said that they got like some of the tasks and they felt so annoyed that it would be that they'd fly into these jobs and they're like, the infantry should be doing these jobs. Why are we doing these jobs?
Exactly.
So I can understand you guys are frustrated because, mate, Australian soldiers, and I'm not bragging here, I'd like to think that we're one of the best infantry trained forces in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? But who knows? But I think what you were saying before is correct. Like, and I honestly didn't think about it from that perspective, from the SF boys having to do the jobs that we should have done. But I do know that the risk matrix, the risk level for us to be able to go out and do a job was exceptionally low generally. It was obviously different compared to the Americans and the Brits. So so I think a lot of people have come back and they're angry, they're jaded, and that sometimes that it's nearly like a group mentality. Maybe now that it gets treated as just like anyone who has a mental health issue after the army, it's like PTSD. Whereas I think a lot of it's actually just like people angry that they didn't get to do their job, and then from that spurns some weird, like, because you're expected to be able to do your job, you're expected that you did do it, and there's all that shit. It's a lot of stuff.
But I think too, and sorry to cut you off, I think too, it's frustration of that. Can I actually do the job that I'm trained to do? Like, and it's like as you said, you train for 4 years, and it's like you say, and I'll use an analogy. A sports player trains for 20 years to get into a grand final, never straps the boots on, sits on the sideline, and never gets into the grand final.
Yeah,
that's what it is for you guys. You want to test yourself. You want to see if you can do it. And
100%.
So I can see why there's a lot of jaded guys out there and that didn't get to do the job, and so we're getting in the weeds, so we'll get out of that. And so you finish your deployment and you come back, and looking back now, and we'll get into what happened next. That are you thinking, well, this is going to be the only deployment I've got? There's nothing on the horizon. What's your mindset when you come back?
I think that was it. I didn't know if I knew it yet, but when we got back, I think it was made pretty clear to us that there were no more deployments on the horizon. So, and battalion life for me, I didn't, it wasn't for me. Just training, some people love it, I wanted to work. If there were more deployments, I probably would have stayed in. But I remember coming back, and one of the early speeches we had from the new battalion staff, I just remember clearly, we'd come back, we're on the parade ground, just kind of annoying anyway, you're waiting around on the parade ground for some officer to tell you something that you don't really care about. And then he tells us that it's basically this year moving forward, one area of our focus is we don't care about how good of a soldier you are or how good at soldiering you are. We care about our focus is dress and bearing. And I just remember there and then I was just kind of like, I'd moved up to recon platoon, but I must have only been there a couple of weeks. Look, it's a better spot than the regular companies, but again, after that speech, and my heart just wasn't in it anymore. Did
you think at that point, I know, and you decided to leave, but did you think SF? Did you think, I could crack SF? Or
I know it was always, SF was always in the back of my mind, and then
we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Yeah, it was always in the back of my mind. But at the end of that point, putting the application in, going through the process, waiting the amount of time that I'd put my app in before actually, and I think I got knocked back because of battalion manning issues was the excuse used. And brother, that's just one of the excuses that some boss goes, it doesn't matter. One infantry soldier amongst a battalion of infantry soldiers that's not deploying is meaningless. So got knocked back for that, and I think just the idea of putting that app in, it just it wasn't worth it for me at that point in time. Wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth sticking around in a place I didn't want to be at to wait and go through that process.
And I understand. And so many guys that I've had on the podcast, mate, is that battalion, the COs didn't help them. They did not want them to leave the battalion and go SF. They wanted them to stay in the battalion, so they made it hard, or they go, not this one, or not this one. And I don't understand. You're frustrated, man.
I've seen that. I think, and look, I think there's been some probably really good COs that let their boys go because they know if they pass, that's good. If they fail,
morale boosting for just he did it.
Yeah,
he could do it,
And if they fail, they're going to come back and they're still going to be a better soldier for it.
Exactly.
So there's definitely, obviously, there's good and bad in every bunch. Our CO at the time that I applied, or the OC, whoever it was, decided that manning was more important. So but that's just my experience.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, there was a frustration. But again, I didn't want it enough. If I wanted it enough, I would have stayed in.
Well,
we're going to wanted it enough.
We're going to get to that, down the track, because you do have a crack. You do have a crack. So we'll get to that a little bit later in the podcast. And so 2015, mate, you decide that's it. I'm out. There's nothing on the horizon. And then, mate, after leaving the army, because I know that takes 12 months by the time.
No, I got out quick.
Right, okay.
Yeah, there's some tricks you can utilise.
Yeah, right.
I actually transferred to the reserves because the reserves you just rock up on Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
So I transferred to the reserves, and then I just stopped rocking up and got out of the reserves. So within 3 weeks, I was out of the battalion.
Oh, right.
I did try to go to a couple Tuesday nights in Canberra. Obviously, every different reserve unit is different. Turns out, because I moved back to Canberra, that's just what I knew. Canberra reserves more regimented than I've ever been, even in full time. So I thought it'd be relaxed. I think there's relaxed reserves elsewhere. But those 3 hours on every Tuesday night, I was more regimented than any 3 hours of my previous 5 years. So I think I rocked up a couple times and then just
So you're thinking, geez, this is harder than full time. Like they took it seriously down there.
It's very serious.
Yeah, right.
Very, very serious. I don't know. Anyway, so I rocked up a few times, then just discharged from the reserves.
So you get out, and then you go to the US. Talk me through this.
So by that point in time, I was 24, and I didn't know. I felt like a soldier. I felt like I still wanted to do the soldiering thing. I went to US to a place called Trojan Securities, and I did a month of training over there. And the training over there was a high level, adult learning environment. It was I think it was like a hostage rescue, like counter surveillance, just a high level training for just private military training for a month. Every day you'd finish the day and you were a better operator at the end of the day. The goal at that point was like potentially I'll go private. A few of the boys had gone private at that point. Finished that course and I loved it. And I remember speaking to the Trojan heads of the company, and they were just like, it's easier once you're 25, doable. But 24, it's like, I don't know, there's insurance thing, at least through their company. So I got back to Australia and I was like, like every week seems forever back then. So I came back to Australia, and again, that was an awesome time, awesome training period. Came back to Australia, I worked for a little bit longer. I kept looking privately, but again, at that point in time, I was probably about the change in private military contracting where the companies started employing, locals, or I know the Brits in the US got paid a lot less than the Australian expectation, so it started getting harder and harder to get employed overseas. So even that was changing, that landscape. So that's when I really came back and started, because now that was the end of 2015, start of 2016.
Yep.
And that's when I started going, well, hey, it's time, stay in Australia, start sorting my life out and getting getting a career now.
Yeah.
And that's when I started applying for the cops.
And so you come back, you apply, and the thought is, as you said at the start of the podcast, is you always wanted to be a police officer, that willingness
correct.
to serve. You start applying, and do you apply like nationwide, or?
I think I applied like all East Coast. So Vic, ACT, or AFP. I don't think I did NSW, and I did QPOL. And I did QPOL, and those processes were all fairly formal. I remember I got a letter back from QPOL initially letting me know that I'd been knocked back and don't apply again for another 10 years because I forgot to inform them of a fine that I got for a fight I got in 4 years and 11 months ago. The cutoff was 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was just my bad. It was just a dumb fight. Got a ticket for it. It was no big deal. I fully forgot about it, but because I think if I'd let them know about it, it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Yeah.
But because I hadn't told them, that was the thing. And I know that I hadn't told, obviously, any of the other states about it. So because it was so formal, I assumed that if QPOL would knock me back, the other states would as well. And I ended up applying for the NT cops prior as well. And I called because the process for the NT cops is a lot less formal. And I called the recruitment crew for the NT cops because I just figured I was done for the other states. And I remember I told them that I forgot to tell them about this fine I got. They asked what was it about. I told them that I got in a fight with a group of guys who were bashing another lad. And I remember still the recruiter just laughed on the phone. I was like, mate, you're going to fit right in. And he's like, you're in. Basically, and a few weeks later, I'm up in Darwin starting police school.
Yeah, wow. And mate, if you had a crystal ball then to see what would what would happen, and you're going to fit right in, But you want to do your job, you want to get in, and mate, so that happens pretty quick. You're in Darwin, and so talk me through the process. Like you're at the and at the academy, like a lot of the coppers that I've had on, it's that they say the hardest thing is learning the legislation, the laws, and did you find that as because you're fit, like you're boxing, you've kept fit from the military. What was that like? Because as you said, you weren't always good at school. So how was that?
Well, I always performed well in school. I just didn't put effort in. But I don't know. It was strange because I had the same experience. Like in the police academy, everyone had a hard time. Not everyone. A lot of people had a hard time learning legislation. And I don't know what was different about. Maybe it was an awareness of there were laws in Australia as a kid, and I didn't want to end up in jail. And I was like, you kind of like push the boundaries, but you don't want to go over the edge. I don't know. It was so normal for me because I was like, we've grown up. This is our country. These are our laws. You should if you live here, you should have an awareness of what the laws are. Maybe that was just intrinsic in me. Maybe it was because Mum was a lawyer. Maybe it was from watching Law and Order. I don't know, but it wasn't too hard because it was just kind of like rehashing the laws that we lived by in Australia. There were intricacies that you don't know about, but it wasn't mind blowing. So police academy for me was good. Again, like I got paid to train from 7 till 8. You have an hour for brekkie and a shower. I'd just keep training, then have a shower. Yeah, you have a lot of PowerPoint of legislation, but it was kind of just rehashing the laws of, it's nothing crazy. But it was, a lot of death by PowerPoint. And it was good. There was a few 2-week blocks where basically it is death by PowerPoint for 6 months, but there's 2 weeks of shooting on the range, 2 weeks of specific investigation training, and 2 weeks of driver training. There's probably some other specific stuff as well. Just can't recall it, but that's basically what it was. But I enjoyed it. It's 8 till 4 or 8 till 5. Day shift. It's not like Kapooka anymore. If you mess up, you're not in your body armor and your pack marking time for half an hour.
It's different. And
it's different.
Are you at that point too, because you had your military background? Are you helping other guys who hadn't shot before and all that sort of thing?
My so from the military, my rifle work was, I'd say, pretty good. My pistol work from the military wasn't. We didn't. We had. We had them. We didn't use them. But in America, that month was amazing for me in that regard. But there was a few of us. There was guys growing up. There was some sport shooters there that were amazing on the Glock, and we would try to do our part to help people out. Obviously, we'd try to leave it up to the instructors, but we'd help out our peers if we could. So yeah.
And how many started that you can recall, and how did everyone finish? Did everyone finish?
I think so. Maybe one. I think it was 30.
Yeah.
And I think 30 finished.
Yeah, right. And you've had that pass out at Kapooka all those years ago.
Yeah.
Do you bring your mum and dad up to see you pass out again that you can remember?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, right.
But my memory... my memory is fried. I think so.
Yeah, we're going to get into why it's fried. And what did you feel, you'd done your 6 months training. Did you feel ready that, okay, I'm ready now to go out in the big, bad, dangerous world of policing? Did you feel that you
definitely felt ready as we wanted to, but I think we all really knew that police academy was a police academy and death by PowerPoint, and your real training would start on the street. So I think we all, or everyone that I knew, was aware of that fact, that we were ready to get on the street, but that's where our real learning would start.
And for you, so you march out, and where were you stationed? Where did you go?
I picked Alice Springs. I chose it. We definitely had preferences again. I think most people got their preferences. I chose Alice. At that point in time in the NT, Alice was just the most volatile, most violent, busiest station. And I figured I wanted to learn as much as possible, as quick as possible. So if you're attending more jobs, you're going to learn faster. So that's why I chose Alice Springs. So I went down there.
And this is what I want to highlight to our military first responder listener, so the civilian listener. I had our good mate Benny Hoskin on, episode 116. So he was a Northern Territory police officer and then specialised in TRG. He said it himself that policing in Northern Territory is different to any other policing in Australia. It is. And he said he wanted to go and test his skills, and he went, I think, Tennant Creek. Is that?
Yeah, I think Benny went to Tennant.
Yeah, Tennant Creek first. And so you go to Alice Springs, and for the civilians, mate, talk me through day-to-day policing in Alice Springs.
Well, I remember when I drove, so it's a 15-hour drive south from Darwin to Alice. And I remember the further south I was driving, I was just going what am I driving into? Because, you just drive, and then for hours and hours there's just desert, and then you drive through Tennant Creek. Tennant Creek is Benny describes it better than I did. Tennant Creek's a strange joint. Then you get to Alice, and I remember when I got to Alice, I felt more comfortable in Afghan for the first few weeks. More comfortable in Afghan than I did in Alice Springs.
Wow.
That was how big the culture shock was of not the indigenous culture of Alice Springs as a place, like, because everywhere has a subculture. Alice Springs has its own culture as a city or a subculture, and I was more comfortable in Afghan because, as I said previously, Afghan had rules, and although we didn't agree with them, they're rules that we know which they generally abide by, and then you have the enemy that abide by other rules, and we know that they don't abide by the rules, and we know what they're willing to do. But Alice Springs was so strange because you have, the weirdest way to explain it, you have the Australian law, which is legislation, and then you have Indigenous law, which is a cultural law, and then on top of that you have a bastardization of Indigenous law, which is basically just rubbish behaviour, and culture is used as an excuse for it. You have it all mixed together, and there's all this, like, it should just be a one law, right? Like the rest of Australia. And as Benny said, policing up there is different than anywhere else in Australia. And you know what? It probably shouldn't be. It probably should be the same as everywhere else. But it is different. The justice system is utilised different. So you've just got all this weirdness going on. And then what it ends up is you just, like, walking down the street and you just have, like, drunks on the street abusing people, abusing each other. And it's kind of just like a blind eyes turn. So it was just a weird, eye-opening experience.
Well, it's something that as you say, you've never experienced it before because you've been in Canberra and
exactly. And even now, you see, like, there's so many of our mates that are still in the territory. They will take their young kids interstate to a shopping mall, and their kids are kind of surprised that, there's like, hey, no one's yelling, no one's screaming, no one's spitting on each other, and no one's, like, fighting with weapons. And our mates like, yeah, this is normal. This is what should be occurring. Back home, like, that behaviour is not normal, but that's what's occurring. So I think it's the closest thing to a failed state you could have in Australia and right now. Yeah. And for, like, the last few years, for a long time. Of course.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Mate, in your first week of policing, so I want to talk about this because, mate, as I said at the start, and you've been branded as a racist, murderer, bloodthirsting, all the media and people have seen like that, and I did my research into, and what a lot of people don't realise too is that, mate, you also save lives, like you also, and you're involved in and you and I have spoken about this, so it's nothing that's like, I'm not shocking Zach by sitting across from him going, this is all what's been stated, and the corona we'll get into later. In your first week of policing, mate, you were involved in a river rescue incident. Mate, talk me through this act, and you were awarded bravery medals for this act. Yeah,
so it's the first week that I was on the actual road. For that whole month, it'd been just pouring in Alice Springs the whole time. Apparently, once every, 50 years, there's just this weather incident that Alice Springs just gets smashed with rain, and it has these, real crazy floods. So that's the year that I went down. So all December had basically been pouring. Rivers and stuff, the dry riverbeds has just been building up. On this day, it's just a normal day shift. Again, I'm fresh. But the good thing about the NT Police versus the Army not so much, the Australian Army is better for it, but the NT Police, or the police in general, probably, is that the rank structure is obviously there, but on the ground, it's just more human. If anyone has expertise, it's kind of like that person we'll lean on that person. So on that day, towards the end of shift, I was on a day shift, maybe it was about 3 p.m, we got a call, and the call was a bit confusing, but basically what had happened is, about 40 minutes out of town, a river had overflowed over a causeway. The causeways are raised about 2.5 metres. Obviously it's like a bridge, but usually it's just over a dry riverbed. The water had risen over that point. Someone, a tourist, a lad from Taiwan and his missus from Hong Kong, had tried to drive across the causeway. There's cars parked up on either side. It was very obvious he shouldn't have done that, but old mate just charged. So he went through. His car got swept off the causeway, sorry. The car got swept about 200 metres downstream, hit I guess it got stopped eventually by a tree, but it's completely submerged. But the call, we didn't know all this had happened because there's no reception out there. So someone had seen it occur from the Alice Springs side of the river. They'd driven back to reception, called us, and we went out there. We got out there, and as we went out there, the rain's still coming in. So we're going up through rivers on the way out there, and they're still rising. So SES left, I think, about 10 minutes behind us. But by that 10 minutes had meant that those rivers that we'd already passed had risen to the point where they couldn't get through them. So we're out there. We got out there by ourselves. So there's a few, I think there was maybe 3 cop cars out there and maybe our Sarge, so maybe 6 or 7 of us out there. That's when we saw the situation for what it was. Talked to some of the civilians out there who had told us a bit more. Once we got to the actual causeway, got downstream a little bit, the river I think there's some footage of it. I think it was about probably 70 metres to 100 metres wide at this point, and raging. We could see the guy, he had climbed a tree. So basically what had happened is, turns out, his missus had punched out the back windscreen, broken her hand doing so. She'd used the boot divider as a flotation device because she couldn't swim, and she just held on. The guy had managed to grab onto the tree that the car was stuck up against, and he just climbed it. But by the time we got there, he was like shivering. I think he'd been in there probably for an hour and a half by the time we actually got comms to get out there. Right. And the time it took us to get out there. We didn't know where the girl was, but we knew someone else was in the car and had gone downstream. I believed that, looking at the river and how rough it was, that if someone had gone in there, I think there was some word that she couldn't swim very well because the guy couldn't speak English. I assumed she was dead. And my Sarge was getting guys to search down the outside of the river, but no one could cross the river to try and find her. And I remember talking to the Sarge, and I was just like, look, I think she's, there's no way she's alive. We need to focus on the win that we can have. We need to get this guy out of the tree because we can save his life, but she's probably long gone. That point, a civilian, Michael Priestley, was there as well, and he ended up getting a medal as well for this. He was there, he had a long rope, and he assisted us as well. So we stripped down because there's probably a 20-metre gap from between us and a sandbank in the river, and we ended up swimming across the sandbank, obviously, so we pushed far upstream because the river's going to flow us down.
It's going to bring you down, yeah.
So we pushed fairly far upstream. We swim across the sandbank with the rope, Michael Priestley, myself, and my Sarge, and we stripped down to our undies for it because I just tested the water, and it was just so strong that I knew that if we went in there with clothes, you're
going to be weighed down, yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't have made it. We get to the sandbank. It was a pretty hard swim to get there, but I was probably the freshest after that. We throw the rope to the guy in the tree, get him to tie it around him. He was obviously scared. I could tell, looking at his face, I could tell that what I imagined was his thinking was that he had just, by deciding to drive through that causeway, he'd killed his missus. I could kind of tell that his heart wasn't in it. He was about ready to let go of that tree. I was like, fair enough. But he also obviously didn't want to let go because there's that fear. So we got him to tie the rope around. Then we went down as far down the sandbank as we could, and we ended up getting to the point where we pulled him off the tree and just pulled him towards us using the stream as well. By that point, so they were safe. He was safe at that point on this sandbank. My Sarge was like, we need to get across the other side to search down for this girl. And I was like, because we could see something downstream, a bit of pink, could have been her. Turns out it was just part of their luggage. I tested the water again. I told her I could do it. She obviously didn't want me to do it unless I was confident. We had a chat, and I was like, yeah, I'll get it done. Because, again, even if she had passed, we had to find her body.
Of course.
And no one else was coming out to help us. So I ended up leaving the lad with my Sergeant Priestley, and I think they had to just basically Baywatch him back to the other. So they swam with him because he couldn't swim very well either. I think they got him. They got him to the other side of the river again, through that 20-metre stretch. But I swam across to the other side of the riverbank, and I remember just looking, because it was a hard swim. I remember just looking back at my Sarge, just clapping, because she was obviously relieved. And then I look at the time, I think I had an hour. Oh no, sorry, I think I had about 2 hours till dark. So I figured I'd just walk down for about an hour, and then I have to turn around and come back up because I couldn't pass that river in dark. I tried to walk inland a bit because I figured she would, if she'd gotten to my side of the river somehow, she would have walked inland. But the ground was so rough. Obviously, I'm in barefoot, and my feet were getting cut up. So I pushed back into the river and basically swam down and like traversed down the side of it as much as I could. I dive under trees every now and then to check the roots to see if she was in there. And then after about an hour, I was yelling out her name and I hear a response. And I see across the river had kind of forked. So in the middle of the fork, there she is, Cherry. She's busted up. She's like yelling out back to me. But what had happened is she had used that boot divider and she got sent 7 Ks down the river because where I found her was 5 Ks down.
Far out.
Yeah, because the way I was moving and the fact that it took me an hour, because I was swimming, like checking routes, trying to walk a little bit, I figured it was just 5 Ks. We checked it later, it was 5. So she got sent down about 7 Ks until she managed to get pushed up into this, like the land on the fork, and then she'd walk 2 Ks back up already. But then there's nowhere else she can go because she's reached the end of the land. She was dehydrated, scared out of her mind, and I figured if I walked back up, I would lose her because I could see the river might have forked previously on the other side. I wouldn't find her again. So I pushed a couple 100 meters back up river, and I just figured I'd send it. I started swimming in the river towards her. And as soon as I started getting in, because she didn't know I was a cop, I'm in my undies. She just thought I was a crazy guy.
Yeah.
And she thought the river was just way too rough. But I started swimming, using the current obviously pushing me down, and I just aimed for trees. Get pushed up against a tree, have a bit of a rest, try to go to the next tree. In the middle of the river, the current was the strongest. I got pushed up against a big tree, and I could not move. And I figured at that point, my back's to the tree, the current's just smashing me in the chest, and I'm basically stuck against this tree. And I kind of figured this is where I was like, yeah, I've bitten off too much here, and I might have done myself here. And I was like, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like, well, if I'm gone, I may as well do what I'm trying rather than being stuck. And I just inched myself towards the edge of the tree to on the side I'm trying to go, knowing that the water at some point is going to take over and just tumble me.
Yeah.
And it did eventually, and I just started getting tumbled, and I just kept trying to swim in that direction and not panicking, and eventually I started getting scraped along the rocks on the ground, which is a good thing.
Because you got land. You're coming to land.
So I was getting busted up, getting scraped up, but I got to the other side of the river, and I remember I came out, and she was running down to me, and I remember I just started laughing because I was happy because I thought I just basically cheated death. So I was laughing. So now she thought there's a crazy,
who is this crazy
naked dude laughing.
Yeah. As you would.
She's very worried. And then once I realised the impression I would have been giving her, I told her that the cop and that we'd got her partner safely already. At that point, she just changed as well. And then she's stoked. She's happy. She's laughing. And she was a legend. Broken hand, busted feet. Obviously, her shoes had been kicked off in the current. But she still couldn't swim. So we pushed down the other side of the river because it was a bit calmer. Went for a while until we found the calmer spot. I put her on my back. She was petrified, so I just told her, just close your eyes and
hold on.
Don't choke me out.
And is it getting dark at this point?
No, because I'd try to be as quick as possible. So I think when we trekked up the other side of the river, I think we got up about 5:30, maybe 6.
Yeah.
It's summer in the NT, so the sun's up fairly late. So we got to the other side of the river, her on my back, and then because she was tiny, I was like, I can carry you if you want. And she was like, no, I'll staunch through it. And she was the toughest bird.
Yeah, right.
Broken hand. Again, her feet were chopped up to nothing. She just got sent 7 Ks down.
Yeah.
Dehydrated. Yeah, she was a legend. We got back up to the crew. The crew was still trying to figure out how to cross the river up top. They were trying to use, I think they were trying to use some ropes and make a kind of bridge over the causeway. But got up. Everyone was stoked. No one thought we could find her. Found her as I rocked up. I think an SES helicopter rocked up, and all the boys got out in their fresh uniforms. And I think they were a bit dirty that they just didn't get to do their job. Yeah. My bad. But she got on the chopper and flew back to Alice, and the lad by that point had been picked up in an ambo, and he was in the way gone back as well. But again, the rivers were rising, so he couldn't actually. I think she got back there a long time before him. And then, that was it. Everyone was stoked. We drove back into town. We had to wait ages. We actually got a long flatbed truck out to start ferrying us back across the rivers because the rivers were too high. And that was it. We got back to base, had a debrief, a super weird debrief by the bosses, kind of giving us a smack already, but without asking us what had occurred. Then we knocked off about 8:30 p.m. And then, back on shift the next morning.
And at that point too, like, and mate, that's just crazy to just go, yep, we're going to go in. Like, the bosses are smacking you. You saved 2 people's lives.
Yes, yeah, so that night, it got a bit weird, but I just thought, I was fresh and I was like, maybe this is what they... Because we got told we're going to have a debrief. And, like, you and I know what a debrief is. Like, what happened? What went well? What went wrong?
What could we improve on? Yeah.
So I guess it was called a debrief, but it wasn't a debrief. No questions were asked. It was kind of just weird.
Yeah, right.
I can't even remember what it said. I just remember it being strange. And us being like, you'd expect either let us knock off or, like, good job.
Yeah, well, that's what you would expect. Like, you wouldn't expect to, well, no, you're
reckless.
Yeah, you're reckless. Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe there was an issue that maybe they're upset that they just paid for a helicopter to come out for an hour and for nothing. I don't know. I'm not sure. I remember thinking that thought, like, maybe it's a money thing. But either way, knocked off and, went back to work the next day as normal. But it was like we had a really good culture on the ground in the Alice Springs station around that time. So if you're a solid worker, if you did good, like the ground crew, like up to your sarge, to your senior sarge, were really, really good. So there was a lot of support. There was a lot of, like, respect for the patrol group for that job. But the bosses were just very strange about it. There was a journo out there that had obviously was trying to get somewhere, and he was blocked on our side of the river. So he took some photos. They made an article about it. That's how it got publicised. But for the next few days, because I'm still fresh in the cops, so I'm walking into the police station and I'd immediately perform muster, because you start your shift with a little muster room. I'd get called up to the boss's office upstairs, like level 2 or 3, and just have like a dressing down by a superintendent. I don't even know what about. And it was so strange. One of the guys came back to work and he'd been away on the day of the river, and he remembers, we're real good mates now, and he tells me now he just remembers how confused he was, because he'd come in, he'd heard this really good job and they'd saved 2 lives, and it was really not reckless, sorry, it was really, like, good, but it was really brave. And he'd go to the muster and he'd be like, where's the new guy? And the sergeant would just be like, he's just getting yelled at again by the super. And he was just, and then I'd come in looking real confused and be like, let's carry on. And I'm like, I don't know, it was just strange.
Yeah.
But then I got a call at like 5:30 in the morning one day, a few days later, being like, you need to come to the station now to do an interview with maybe like Sunrise or Today Show. I didn't want to do that, but they made me come in like as like they use it for the good publicity. But then and then after that, it's 5:30 in the morning. I didn't wear a hat because it's night time basically.
Yeah,
and I go straight in the station, get a smack for not wearing a hat. And I'm like, mate, Jesus.
Oh,
wow. But anyway, that was
yeah. So
it's fun times.
And then at that point you're thinking, well, as you know, the media, a good news story in the media at that point. That changes later on, and we're going to get into that, like, and what happened down the track, and who nominates you for the Bravery Awards? Like, how do they come about, and do they come down the track, or what happens?
A long time down the track. So the police have never really supported anything that happened that day. Like, sorry, the bosses, because the Bravery Award comes about only because the journal was there that day. So the photo was out, the stories are out. And then there's like the Bravery Association of Australia, I think that's what it's called. And I'm going to get this completely wrong because I don't pay attention to some stuff.
Royal Humanitarian Society, I think it is.
They were one as well. But there's a crew that, like, obviously are involved in the Bravery Medals. And obviously they're looking for, because they're good humans and they want to celebrate courage. They want to celebrate bravery and focus on the good and raise that up and say this is something to look to. So they're looking for instances like that. I think they can't find too many in the police, probably because it's like a lot of brave stuff happens in the cops, but you don't get nommed for it.
Yeah, it's really you do it because you're just doing the job, and it's not.
So there's not really a honours and awards.
There's no expectation of it.
100% honours and awards system, but we just don't know about it. My watch commander actually turns out, I didn't know this at the time, but my watch commander did nominate myself and my sarge, for a police bravery medal. He got knocked back from the same superintendent that was giving me dressing down. She was just like, no, this isn't brave, this is just reckless and dumb, basically. So that got thrown in the bin, but I didn't find out until later. So the Bravery Awards board, I guess, They ended up sending someone out when they heard about it. They're obviously looking to celebrate bravery. They interviewed Cherry and the lad. They asked me, I think they interviewed me or got a statement off me, same as my Sarge and Michael Priestley. So they did it all themselves, did the investigation themselves. Then, in 2018, I got the Bravery Medal for that. And that was the weird one. It was good. Like, it's obviously a good thing. Never expected for you never do anything that for the medal. And it only became interesting to me later when you do get charged for murder. Like, anything positive on your CV is a good thing. So that's when I was like, the more positive, the better. Because the night before I got that Bravery Award, and one of the guys came over and he was like, I just need to let you know that we need to have a chat. When the award gets read out tomorrow, we can't have your face just like showing any shock, because we've had to kind of like change it up a bit, because we've obviously, as part of the process, we've had to reach out to the NT police. They've given us a different version of events as what's occurred. Their version of events was that you waded into waist deep water and basically coaxed two tourists to you. So the medal's kind of been downgraded. The write-up's a bit different. Just don't show shock or anything like that. I was like, and at the time I didn't care, because
it's not why you did the job.
It's not why you do it, and you're like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like, not really about it. You're not doing it for the medals at all. So I didn't really care. So the cops, and again, I don't know why they did that, but down the track, it's been a focus, because down the track they even used it in the coronial. Jumping ahead, they used that incident as a way to attack me. They used it to describe me that from the first week in the career, Zach was reckless. They said that I disobeyed orders that day, which is a complete lie.
We started just backing you.
100% backed me the whole time.
Yeah,
has never not backed me. We discussed it from the get-go, what to do, and I did everything with her approval, based off my confidence level. She said she wouldn't never tell me to do it, but if I'm confident to, she would. So they said I disobeyed orders, that I was reckless, and that I just always basically wanted to be a hero. So the police force has always been super weird about that, and it's always been what I've seen. There's some cops in charge that do because they themselves aren't brave enough to step in front of danger for someone else. They then nearly attack others that do. They never
tall
are
poppy
going to be
syndrome.
Exactly, tall poppy syndrome. They're never going to be a good enough cop that they're going to get the respect of the ground floor, like the troops.
Yep.
They've never had that in their career. They've probably never saved a life. They've probably never done a job that's really affected someone in a positive way. So the next best thing is that they can take down a cop that does. So there's a lot of that going on, and that's what I just figured it was. Some cops have been in for 20 years and never made a meaningful contribution, because they're not brave enough. I'm not saying that you have to be physically brave like that. I'm saying they're not brave enough to improve themselves.
Correct.
To put the effort in to be a good human. It's easier just to sit behind your desk and attack others than it is to make yourself a better human. Because if you're just a good person, you're going to get respect from the ground floor.
Exactly. Well, it's in society too.
Exactly.
If you do good generally comes back your way. Like, I mean, look at where we're recording today. Like,
exactly.
Like, we're recording on our good mate's boat. That and it's been through the hard work of that we're both good people, that we're here doing this today, and it's society. If you do good, good will come. If you do bad,
that's like the rule. Like, that's the rule that we hope it works. But so that's basically that. That's the weird.
And how do you tell your mum and dad? Like, how
about
are they? Yeah, about that incident. Like, because your mum's like, she's probably freaking out, going, "I nearly lost my son." Like, it's a brave act what he's done, and your dad's proud of you.
Well, I didn't think I told them that it was scary or nothing like that.
But they would have read it. I think
I just called them and said, I went for a swim or something like that. Honestly, I think I just said, like, hey, went for a swim. I think there's going to be some news article about it. I was like, policing's cool. Like, first week, I guess this is what the job is.
Yeah, so, right.
Yeah, there was no, like, I think everyone was like, cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's part of the job.
You had a pool. Because I wasn't a good swimmer growing up, because Canberra's cold as. So I didn't want to jump in the pool. But in Darwin, there's a pool on base, so every Arvo I was swimming, which is fortuitous.
Yeah, of course, mate.
Yeah.
So, mate, that happens. And then talk me through, because as we said, and Benny said it as well, policing in Northern Territory is different to any other policing. What are your day-to-day jobs that you're doing in GDs?
Yeah, we were so busy in Alice. I know like cops elsewhere, I think they're very busy as well, and it depends, they may be as well. But I know that the versions of busy are different. In the NT, we might go from like, for the 10-hour shift, if we have it 10 hour, we will go from non-stop from job to job to job to job. We don't get back to write up our jobs until until we knock off, and that's when like we're doing hours of OT, often most shifts. The majority of it is when I was there is like domestic violence jobs, alcohol related offences, but it's very violent. It's a very violent place, like physically violent. Obviously, there's not too much like gun crime up there, but there is a lot of edged weapon crime. But yeah, the majority of our jobs are, on a day shift, like most jobs are mostly boring. On a day shift, we might be, spending the most of the day, early part, attending the victims of crime who've been broken into overnight, taking statements and all that kind of stuff. But then you've got stolen cars to chase. You've got a lot of violence, a lot of domestic violence occurs. But it's not uncommon for you to be in you rock up work at 7 a.m. It wouldn't be uncommon for you to get into a fist fight before 7:30, before you've had your morning coffee. And we've had jobs like that where you go, someone's out and about causing trouble that early in the time, and then you rock up and they're trying to rock you with actual rocks, and you're in a fight before you really even had your morning coffee. So it is a violent place, but you do, I guess, that violence, like what I was talking about before with the kids going to interstate shopping malls, it becomes normalised and you do get conditioned to it. But again, it's an awesome, like, best job I'd had. But again, like, it was a wicked job. Again, most of it is boring. Most of it you're just driving around, ideally with a mate. If you're not attending your jobs, you can cruise and get a coffee and you're just hanging out. It was a really good job and I loved it.
And for you, do you remember the first death that you had to deal with, or not that you can remember?
No, I don't really remember the first death. We did have a lot of deaths in Alice, but I don't remember the first one. The ones that really stand out, we had a really bad period, over a few months while I was there. And again, I was only on the street for 3 years. And in that time, there was a really bad period of a few months where there was a lot of like teenage suicides. And I remember in a few months, I think I attended maybe 3 teenage suicides.
How's that affecting you mentally?
I've always found it with the kids very, very rough. Always was really, really rough with the kids. It's just sad, it's just horrible. And then you see the parents, and they're broken-hearted, and they're never going to be able to, you're never going to heal from that. But yeah, that's always been the kids that's stuck with me. Again, in Afghan, on one of the routes we did, a woman was using her child as a kind of like a roadblock, a dead child as a kind of like a roadblock to try and get aid, and you want to stop and you want to help, but potentially it's a ambush, so you can't stop. So I'd had the experiences before. You have the deaths in the cops, the suicides like that, but then you also have the different jobs where you don't find the body for a week or two, and the bloat is so completely different. That's a different level of it.
And no amount of training can prepare you for that.
No, and especially not the kids. Like, you see the officers with children, and they go to a child's death, and like the pain and stuff that causes them. But again, like in the job, you have to go. We would go to a hanging. And as soon as that body's down and in a body bag, you're on to the next job. Like, we've gone from jobs where we literally get in time to a woman who is hanging herself, and she is hanging, run up to her, grab her weight. My mate partner cuts her down, and she's obviously crying. Her life's gotten to the point where she wants to kill herself. And you just sit with her until the next crew comes, because it's like actually dispatched to them. We just got there first. You're sitting with a woman who's just been trying to kill herself. You've just saved her life. I don't know, you hope that it's going to get better from there. But then the next crew comes over and you just tap out and you're on to the next job like nothing happens. Like, so it's a bit wild like that up there, where you can you go from jobs, like crazy jobs, but then you're just on to the next one. It's just so busy. And
I think too, that's like we've got good mates that are in the police as well, or ex-police, and a lot of the guys that I've had on it's Australia wide. It's worldwide. Like it's just this is job to job to job. You're compartmentalising this, all of these things. Is there any support for you in that sense, or not really?
Like I guess there's the box ticking stuff. There's probably a welfare officer. There's a box ticking stuff. I really do think, and I understand. Like I really do think that everyone's against the militarisation of the police. I think the police should be more militarised in some senses.
Of course.
You come out of police school and you are basically on deployment then for the rest of your career, unless you go behind a desk. I really do think there should be a rotation system in place where you nearly do have deployment rotation, and obviously not as the same times as the military, but you need that, that decompression period. So if you're on the road for 10 months of the year, you need a 2-month decompression period where not only are you decompressing, you're not doing night shift, but you're also upskilling and training, and because you need to continuously train. All the skills we get in police school are perishable. So you need to do constant, but the training and the upskilling is actually a positive for your mental health, improving yourself.
Yeah.
So it's double edged, like in a good way. So I really do think I don't think there's obviously box ticking supports there. I think a lot of people would say, oh yeah, they get a call from some welfare person going like, hey, are you okay? And you go, yep, and they go, okay, sweet.
Yeah, tick the box. Tick the box. Yep, good. You're still employable. You still can do your job. Yeah, cool. Crack on. See you later. Like, there's no. Actually, how are you travelling? Like,
and I think there needs to be even more so than just talking. You can have as much talk therapy as you want. I think there needs to be that decompression period. There needs to be a rotation system.
Well, psychologists have said, mate, and it's been proven now from military deployments, as you went on, it takes 12 months to for the brain to go from that high tense kinetic environment of my life's on the line every day. That studies have shown now that it takes 12 months to decompress properly. And you think of how many SF guys went 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tours back to back to back to back. There's not that time to decompress. I'm not a psychologist, but maybe that's why the military and police are in such the states that they're in now.
Yeah, I think people are just stuck in the old ways of thinking where it is how it is and that's how it is going to stay. But if you look at the military, they do have your deployment period, you have your decompression period, you have your build-up period, then you're training and upskilling for the next deployment period. If we brought something like that into policing, yes, there's going to be manning issues, but there's manning issues now because they can't retain any cops.
Exactly.
And look at maybe the cops that they are getting in are to a lower standard.
And the standard you walk past is the standard you accept.
So what are the standards? Because if you look at the standard that potentially the NT police are projecting, they're potentially putting out there that they want cops that stand by and watch people die. And they do nothing.
But it's the same in the military now, mate. They've lowered the standards in the military.
Exactly.
To just the basic BFA, lower standard. No, keep your standards high. You want to attract the best people into the job.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's even talk in the NT now that for Aboriginal community policing officers that you won't have to do an English test, or maybe it's not just for Aboriginal, and maybe it's not for the ACPOs, maybe it's for the international applicants, that you don't have to do a English written test. I kid you not, I think the commissioner came out and said that, so that's what they were looking at doing, and you can imagine the pressure that would put on other cops for putting forward a file of evidence to court that has to be written in English, that the pressure just goes on to the cops that can. So that lowering the standard's strange, and I think they need to be thinking outside of the box. So in the military, you rock up to work and you do PT for an hour. There should be nothing wrong with that, doing that in the police. Again, that'll extend the day, and the day for a little bit of time you won't be out on the road. But perhaps that changes the culture, that improves the police force, that improves everyone's mental health. Everyone wants to come to work. It improves the community. So potentially it's something like that.
Well, you're still, you're out of the job now, and you still have got mates that are in the job.
100%.
Mate, morale's in the ground. It's not,
100%. I've got mates and my mates are good, strong people, and everyone's suffering in the job. Everyone's hurting. Everyone's getting pushed to the brink. Up, because my mates are still up in the NT. And it's either you step back and you just stop caring, and that's the only way you can protect your mental health,
Mm-hmm.
or if you care, and you actually like still give a fuck, you're gonna go down struggle street.
100%. And it's you can see that that's a slippery, as we both know,
Yeah.
and we're going to get into that later on. The mental health side of things a little bit later on down the track as well with you, and I know it too with my own story. That it's a slippery slope then.
Yeah, for sure. Because even towards the end of, I think, 2019, mid-2019, my sleep was struggling. So what was happening, because I was working, obviously, shift work, lots of night shift with the immediate response team, which I joined.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, so I joined the IRT pretty early after getting into the cops, which is just AR.
So is that is that incident response team? Is that what it stands for, or
immediate response team?
Oh, immediate. Sorry, yeah, immediate
response team. I think.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That was in 2017. Yeah,
immediate response team. I was in 2017. They're just like a semi-tactical team that would deal with any high-risk issue jobs that would arise because the territory response group, Benny's team,
yeah, TRG, yep,
were up in Darwin. It was just unfeasible for them to get down. I think the fastest they could ever get down would probably be 4 hours. I joined them up. I was just working so much, a lot of shift work. I think one of my longest shift that I did was 36 hours straight. Not by choice, obviously, just once you get in some of these jobs you're on. So my work was going crazy, my sleep was going crazy as well because I was feeling so lethargic. I was overtraining to try and counter it, which is the opposite of what I should have been doing. It's a learning thing, so I was just feeling so lethargic that I was overtraining, which was making my sleep worse. Still showing up to the job and stuff, but I did end up going to the doctor at some point and getting some pills to just help me sleep. And there are so many cops doing the same thing, like non-officially, and you can understand why they're doing it non-officially when me being on that. So I was on that. So there were some antidepressants that I ended up being on for a time. The lowest dose you could ever get, and the GPs and the doctors were like, this won't affect work at all. It's just going to help you sleep. You basically a placebo. But the bosses who talk so highly about like mental health, we're going to support our troops, everyone should seek help. This is when a police officer dies or when a police officer kills himself. All of a sudden, we want to support everyone's mental health, look after yourself, look after each other. But when they don't, for example, in my case, it was completely used against me and targeted. So you can see why cops, they target the use of medication, use of going to a psych, the use of venting to your mates, all used against you. So you can see why the cops are getting... Because
they're getting jaded.
They're getting jaded, they're getting worried about it all. But I digress. I went on a tangent.
No, mate. It's good because it's not just the police. It is, like being a firey as well. There are times where if you need help, you don't go and speak to the organisation. You go outside. You
don't go speak to the organisation. After I got arrested, because I had spoken to the police psych, you have to get cleared to go back to work. The police actually subpoenaed or attempted to subpoena the police psych's notes. Well, first off, they just tried to grab them normally, and then she was like, nah, and then they tried to subpoena him. So why would you speak to a police psych?
Exactly.
If you can't trust that source. So
you, and we'll get into, like, we're gonna get into that day and the after effect in a minute. And so you joined the IRT, so you joined that 2017, and mate, in 2018, you go back down, and we spoke earlier on in the podcast about SF. Yeah. You go and you're accepted to attempt SASR selection from a civilian status. Talk me through this, and how did you physically and mentally prepare?
So I think so this is start of 2018. 2018. I was trying to, like, obviously I had this drive to constantly improve myself. Not like I could obviously rest, but I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to progress. And I was putting the work in. I was working hard to try and get some progress, and it wasn't happening in the career with the cops. There was this thing. It was easy to get on courses. The courses in the police were held up in Darwin, not in Alice. So obviously, like, it's easy for the organisation to put Darwin-based police officers on those courses because it's less money for accommodation and all this kind of stuff. It's less administration. So we weren't getting put on any courses now. So prior to the SF selection idea, I even went over to South Africa on holiday just for myself, and I went and did a trauma medic course just as part of my own self-improvement, because obviously the medical skills can help in any life or police force. It's going to make you a better human anyway. Did that course just to, like, I paid for that out of my own pocket just because I wanted to keep learning, and I just wasn't getting that in the job. Then I came back and I still wasn't getting on any courses, and I called up one of the majors that I had the number for on the selection board for the SAS from when I was still in. And I just asked him, told him who I was, and I think he remembered me, and he had, like, a few of my mates were over there, and asked him if I could come over and try selection. Like, I hadn't been in the military at all for 3 years. And he was all about it. He was 100% on board. He said that he believed that there are a lot of potential operators sitting on the couch at home who had just been so jaded from regular battalion that they never got there, and they do good over there. So I train up for that, do everything by the book. I follow that 26-week training program. So I was fit as, got over to Perth and got, like, re-enlisted in the army technically. And then I did the barrier test, but I had a fractured wrist at the time, just from some work stuff, but it wasn't healing. I didn't know it wasn't healing. I thought it was healing. So I just painkillered up for the barrier test, passed barrier test, got accepted onto the selection, and then I got home and got my wrist looked at, and I needed surgery. I'd torn some cartilage, and a fragment of bone had gone in between the cartilage, so it wasn't healing. So I needed surgery, which really bumped me out for selection. And I know me, like, there's no way that I could complete selection injured. I would need all the stars to align. I would need to be on my best, not even get a runny nose. Like, I'm just not good enough otherwise. So I didn't do selection, and that's when I was like, I'll just close the door on that and stop thinking about that and completely move forward. Got back to the cops, and that's when I tried out for TRG.
And before we talk about TRG, are you're bummed out that that your body for the first time has let you down, and as you say, you pass the barrier test, you get accepted on to do selection. Like, are you thinking that if your body hadn't let you down, you were mentally and physically, you could have gone all the way? Do you think, looking back?
Who knows? Like, I probably didn't want it enough that I think if I'd gotten over there, I could have been at my fittest. If I probably didn't want it enough, at one point I would have been wet and cold enough and gone. I'm
checking out, yeah.
Because I probably just didn't want it enough. Probably didn't want it enough, and therefore probably wasn't good enough. I think you really need to want it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to improve myself, so I probably didn't want it for the right reasons. And look, I've been injured as before in other ways, in other situations, so I looking back on it, I was surprisingly not too bummed about it. It was actually a good thing for me to finally get to that point to decide to close the door on it. I think a lot of people never really close the doors on some dreams or things they think about, and it's kind of unhealthy to hold on to it. But yeah, after that, I closed the door on it completely and fully focused on moving forward. So I actually think it was good. And I'm not because I know myself, and I know that I really wasn't, like, I probably didn't want it enough. Oh, I definitely didn't want it enough, and I'm fine not being good enough. Like, so I don't need to. I know some people feel like, I wish I knew if I was good enough or not. I'm fine. And
I think too, the good thing for you, and what I've known about you, and become good mates with you, is that you scratched that itch. Like, you went and did it. Like, you went, there's no, you haven't looked back, you're not going to look back at the end of your life and go, what if I did that?
Yeah,
what if I didn't do that?
I've always been really good at, like, and I've got a really good mentality of always, like, putting myself out of my comfort zone. And that's when I was growing up boxing, because I boxed, I think, basically properly from 12 to 18. And I was boxing. One, I wanted to be able to defend myself, learn a really good skill. But when I was competing, I competed basically until that fear of competing in the ring in front of a crowd. Once that fear went away, and it was no longer uncomfortable for me to be in that one-on-one fight in front of a crowd potential embarrassment. Once that fear of performance in front of a crowd went away, I kind of stopped competing. I was like, I basically got what I wanted out of it.
And it's a good point that you just touch on there is, mate, so many people live in fear in their whole lives.
Yeah.
What if, like, there could be people out there that want to start a podcast, but, what if no one listens?
Yeah.
Well, you try, like,
Exactly.
or what if, I want to start a business. Well, what the fear, what if it fails? Well, try. Like,
Exactly.
Look, get over that. Like, and so many people don't go and chase their dreams
Yeah.
because they allow fear to stop them. And as you
Yeah.
said yourself, once you get past that, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. So I think I've always had that. I was just glad that I got out of the comfort zone, threw my hat in the ring, and then that's the main thing for me, anyway.
So that happens, mate, and then so your wrist heals, and then as you said, you go and do selection for TRG, and this you fit from what you did with selection for the SAS and the barrier test. Is this just a breeze for you? Like you just breeze through your TRG selection?
It's like it's not to sound like TRG selection is hard, but training, and if you train properly for SAS selection, it's 100% different world.
Yeah.
It was, Well, I wouldn't say it was a breeze, but it was.
Breeze isn't the right word, yes.
But it is a word.
Yeah.
It's a word.
Yeah.
But it was all right, yeah. So it's only 2 days, and you can make 30 minutes near impossible in a PT section world. Like, it's a 2-day hardcore PT sesh, basically. But I was prepared for that. 2 days of that, and then it's a week on the range of basically, I guess, testing your trainability, your safety.
Are you doing both rifle and Glock?
Pistol, yeah, at
So,
that point in time.
and you've done your Trojan. All this comes in. So and you didn't find that too hard. Like, it was pretty good.
Yeah, that was a fairly standard at that point. I think it's upgraded now to a different kind of shooting course. But that was all kind of fairly standard stuff. I passed that. They did it on a points basis. So I guess you get evaluated for different tests throughout the week and a half, let's say. I think there might have been like 10 of us on that selection, maybe. There's not many because obviously the pool in the NT police is so much smaller. So I passed that. I got the highest points on the selection for that group of people, got highly recommended. But then what you do then is you go back to your regular job. And that, whatever you got, whether you got recommended, highly recommended, satisfactory or not satisfactory, if that turns into a tick. So regardless of how well you went, you get the same tick. So then you apply, but you apply through the promotion board when a spot becomes vacant. My career was short and I'd just gone to Alice. I had no intention of going out bush or anything like that. So I think I applied for the next 4 positions in TRG, but I just got knocked back. Lack of diversity in my career, etc., which was but I knew, like, at that point in time, I knew at some point there was going to be a position vacant, and I would be the only person qualified in the NT, regardless of how undiverse my career was, and I would just wait out till then, because again, the other option for me was to go out to a remote station for 12 months, and at that point, as a single young male, that was not on my list of things I wanted to do.
And are you, when you do your selection, is this is up in Darwin? Like, you're doing, so up in Darwin, and then so you pass, and then you're back to the IRT again? Like, is that where you head back to?
Yeah, so I was back to, so IRT was part-time, so I'd be full-time general duties, and then if a job came up, the IRT would get called up and you'd do that.
Yeah, right. So you're back to GDs, and then this is where your career is. We're going to talk about this now. This is where it gets really. This is really the start of a shit fight for you.
Yeah.
And so positions don't come up. You're back to GDs, and then I want to talk about this. And this is an incident that changed your life forever on the 9th of November 2019, and the shooting of Mr. Walker.
Yeah.
Talk me through the lead up to this day and what happened, and then subsequently what happened after.
Yeah, so I think a week before a week or a week and a half before the shooting, Walker was in Karpu, which is a drug and alcohol rehab centre, as part of a sentencing for some break-ins that he'd done previously. I think he had 7 days left on his, sentence to serve in the rehab facility. He had an ankle monitor and he cut that off and he absconded. At some point over the next few days, he went back out to Yuendamu, where he had a partner, a teenage girl out there. He'd absconded out there. This started ringing alarm bells within the police force because they were part of what's called the Family Safety Framework up there. He was a high-risk domestic violence offender. He had a large history of abuse against his partner, including breaking her arm with a metal bar, smacking her in the head, bashing her head in with a rock, kicking her in the head in public. So I don't know the full history. We obviously don't know the full history. We only know what's been reported.
Mm-hmm.
There were plans in place, or they were attempting to put the plan in place to remove her from the NT to Adelaide with a family member to protect her from him. So when he absconded, the fear in the, in that world between the women's shelter, the women's protection organisations and the police were for her safety, more so than the breach. Because I'm pretty sure if he got arrested again, he'd just sort of gone back and served his 7 remaining days, really. The concern was for his partner. The evidence that we have that's not out there, it's out there but it's not being utilised, is that he absconded Karpu because he was talking to a number of other teenage girls who pressured him to. Because a few days later, before the axe incident, he actually made contact with not a psychologist, but a counsellor, some form of counsellor in the NT, to try to assist him in handing himself back in. She actually went and met him and a family member in Alice somewhere. Basically, she was too busy that day to attempt to facilitate that, to hand him back into Karpu. I'm not sure what process were taken after that, but then he ended up in Yuendamu. Obviously, the story we get given is that he returned to Yuendamu for his grandfather's funeral, but that's not based off the evidence that was there initially. Then on the Wednesday night, 2 local police in Yuendamu went out. So Yuendamu is 300 k's from Alice Springs. It's a small community. I believe it has a population of about 800 people. Mm-hmm. 2 local cops, they must have had intel that he was at a certain house. They attended. They were led into the front of the house. He was in the back of the house, locked in a room with his partner. And he had a hatchet in the room that they didn't know about. They knock on the door. They basically start discussing with him. He picks up the hatchet and he attacks the 2 cops with the hatchet. Those 2 just have a flight and freeze response. One gets stuck in a corner, hands up. He says himself on the body one later, that same day, later, that he just got stuck in the corner and he was begging for mercy. The other cop freezes for a second, then runs. Walker runs past him, drops the hatchet, and legs out in the community. Then basically they chase him for a bit. I think they catch up with him in the police vehicle. He throws rocks at the police vehicle, and the one that was in the police vehicle decides for some reason that he can no longer attempt the arrest. The next day, being Thursday, I attend to work in Alice Springs. I look on the morning intel sheet and I see you see in an intel sheet, usually for an incident like this, there'd be a large alert going out that this has occurred, because Yuendamu is only 3 hours from Alice and there's a fair bit of travel in between. Obviously, this person's attacked cops with an axe, so it's a big deal. But I saw a minor job alert for an assault police job. I looked into it. I read the write-up in the police report system, and it didn't really make sense to me, so I looked into it a bit further. I found the body-worn video of the incident, and that's where I saw the body-worn for the first time. Kind of blew my mind, the difference between the write-up and the incident, and that there'd been, from what I could see, there'd been no real response to that. So I brought it to my sergeant's attention, who agreed. He passed it up. I let my IRT sergeant know. I think he was on leave at the time. But I kind of let a few people know about it, because there's also this fear, I think we mentioned it before, about professional standards command. You cannot watch body-worn video unless you have like a legitimate purpose for it, such as awareness of a violent individual, 100% allowed. But people would still be worried about doing it. So I let a few of the officers watch it on my count because I'd already watched it. So the damage is already done if someone's going to do. But I knew it was a legitimate watch. So the watch count on my system racked up, which is why later they go, I was obsessed with him. I wasn't watching it. It was the other guys on my system.
But I think, and sorry to interject here, but you want to have the maximum amount of information of what you're going into. That's just common sense.
Oh, 100%. And you want the police to be aware because especially in the NT, you go to so many jobs that are similar to this. There's a massive level of complacency that comes into the job. So when something like this happens, you want to be like, it's kind of a reminder not to be complacent in that way. So that happened. And then on Friday, there was some intel that he'd potentially come back to Alice. So my patrol group got sent out to look for him, but he wasn't in Alice. And then on Saturday, the day of the shooting, I was rostered on for an afternoon shift, starting at 3 p.m. and at about 2:30 p.m., just before I was about to come into work anyway, I got a call from the station saying that I was to go out to Yuendamu with a small team of IRT to arrest Walker. So I always were like, you're going out to arrest him, take all your kit, take overnight stuff in case you're out there for a few days. So I come to the station, talk to the IRT contact, and confirm that the mission was to arrest Walker. There was myself going out, 3 other IRT guys, and a dog handler. The dog handler had already left, so I waited for the 3 IRT guys to get out there. And we basically got told we got no intel. We'll get out to the station and we'll get intel out there.
And at this point, and this is what I want to, because there's been so much media that has reported this wrongly or that. So, as you mentioned, Walker was running around with an axe.
Yeah.
2 days before, is that right? 2 days before?
3 days.
3 days before.
And then over the Thursday night and Friday night, out in Yuendamu, obviously there's a number of nurses in accommodation out there, and their accommodation during the night when they were inside it, there were attempts to break in. So if you're, and that it was obvious that the women were inside. So if you're thinking that you're going, no longer are you thinking just regular break into steal stuff. My immediate thought as a cop, and the experience I had in the town, was that this is leading towards an attempt or a desire of a sexual assault or rape. And I'm sure that would have passed through the minds of the nurses out there as well.
Of course.
That happened over Thursday and Friday night. The police officers on the ground believed Walker was involved because they all wrote that he had a history of utilising the youth in the community to basically assist in break-ins like that. They've made notes that they believed he was involved. They told nurses they believed he was involved. He'd been kicked out of a community down the road for his behaviour, and members of the community during this period apparently didn't even want him in Yuendamu. They called him the mad one or the wild dog. But the police on the ground believed he was involved in these attempted break-ins. Obviously, all this, as we see later, the narrative push all gets changed, and this all gets changed. But I'm like, and obviously there'll be backlash from me saying this, but it's like everyone said everything they can say about me. They're just going to say the same shit again.
Exactly.
And it doesn't really concern me. So on Saturday morning, the nurses were so scared, and fair enough, so scared out at Yuendamu because the police weren't providing them protection, that the decision was made for them to evacuate the community for their own safety. Fair enough. So when we get sent out there, I remember talking to my mate in the car, being like, it's crazy that the response has been so slow to this, that now that we're responding, there is no medical aid out there. And
I was just about to highlight that it's escalating, it's getting more volatile. And command, where's the foresight to get a medivac that if something goes wrong, and it did, and if, as we say, if you had had a crystal ball of what was about to happen, you would want a medivac because you know that surely command, surely they can see that this is a volatile situation, that you would put a medivac on standby in case something happened, and it did.
100%, brother. And this is, obviously, you shouldn't need a coronial for this because it's so obvious, but we did have a coronial, and this issue hadn't been addressed as far as I'm aware. What had occurred afterwards is that I believe Unimu has got like 24-hour security on their nurses' quarters now. Like, I think that was a change. But that's through the health department. But you're exactly correct. So this is one thing that, because it had been fixed previously, should have been discussed in the coronial, as in, what could we do better? Because it's a blatantly obvious thing. And again, it goes like to the militarization. I think we should militarize the police more so, because in the military, you do scenario-based training, you do battle like training, battle mapping and stuff like that. So you would actually train each station on what to do if certain things had happened. And they might say that's in place on paper somewhere, but obviously the incident, the shooting, shows that it was not trained because the staff at the station didn't know what to do. So you would have a situation of this standard operating procedures in place, or they should be created for what to do if a shooting occurred out there, and actions on what if a shooting occurs out there and there's medical staff present. There's no medical staff present. If there's no medical staff present and a situation like this occurs, can we get an AMBO from Alice to come with us for attendance? Because you need that medical aid there.
Because you're so remote too, aren't you?
You're so remote. So like, these actions on needs to be established, and this training needs to be established beforehand and conditioned, so you actually know it. You can like go through it professionally when it does occur. And as far as I'm aware, that was never addressed in the coronial. We know what the coronial was targeted at, and it wasn't on fixes like that at all. So that was, like, on the day I made mention of it and how crazy it was, and I kept mentioning that we should have gone out, the night of the shooting, the night of the axe incident, or TIG should have gone out. But the whole plan of like the whole story of like allowing someone to hand themselves in when they want to, it's not really what you're supposed to do with crims. But yeah, that was should have been a fix. That should be a command and control fix. But the command element after the shooting, I guess, was more concerned with covering their own arse.
And we're going to talk about
shifting
that,
blame rather than improving systems.
So we're going to talk, and we'll get shortly.
Yeah.
Right. So this is where so you make mention, hey, this like medical, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then you talk me through, right, you're now on the ground, you're now looking for Walker.
Yeah, so we get out to the station, and again, medical wasn't there, but this is the Northern Territory, so people, like, it's a bit complacent, it gets a bit loose because it is just so different, and you go into these jobs all the time. We rock up to the station, talk to the Sarge very quickly. She is exhausted from the last few days. They haven't been looking for him, but she's just tired from workload. She basically tells me she'd like us to arrest him at 5 a.m. I ask her, where's he going to be at 5 a.m? She says she has no idea. Then I have a conversation with her about how IRT usually works. We would, introduce ourselves to the community, let them know why we're here, because everyone's going to know anyway that new cops are in town in such a small place. And we'd start like engaging with the community in the hope that eventually someone will help us. Or we just utilise like nearly pressure on the community, because someone in that community will know something. And if we just keep working around the clock, we're either going to locate him or give him up. What I didn't know at the time, and what we didn't know at the time, was after the accident, because she was in a relationship with one of the cops, or she is in a relationship with one of the cops. She's obviously seen the footage or heard about what has occurred. She'd gone out to the family, and the family says, she denies it, but the family says that she'd gone out there and threatened them that if he doesn't hand himself in, she's going to get the task force in from Alice, who will hunt him down like a dog and potentially shoot him. That's word for word what the family say in their statement multiple times. And you can see it on body-worn video later. I think it's the Sunday after the shooting. The family's obviously going off at her, like screaming at her, like, you said this would happen. What that has done in the family, as per the family, and the Sarge out there, she says she apologised to the family for raising her voice, but she denies saying that she's going to get the task force out and hunt him down like a dog and potentially shoot him. But the family member says that the Sarge said this to her. She then contacted Walker and his partner, told them what the sergeant said, and that they need to hide from police because the police are coming for him, basically. We didn't know this. And we did know as soon as we step out into the community is going to know we're there anyway. They're going to know what we're there for. And as soon as we we're going to gain intel, that's the goal, but as soon as we're out there, we want to start burning ourselves at the same time. So she tells us, basically, she agrees at that point, and this is in front of the 4 of us, like the 4 of us IRT guys, the dog handler, and her partner, who was in the station at the time. She's listening, I then brief up the boys, say, we're going to go out to the community, do what we usually do. We're going to try to get intel in regard to his whereabouts. Like, secondary objective. A primary objective is to arrest Walker.
Of course.
If we can do it at 5am, cool. If not, that's not our primary objective. She was there listening to me do that, and that's what all the statements say.
And what I want to highlight here too is, mate, for what's gone on after, you wanted to... It's not that you were going out to wanting to kill him. You were wanting to arrest him. That was all you were wanting to do.
The mission was always just to arrest.
Exactly.
The mission was always just to arrest.
And
I think
media spun it, and
yeah. If you actually watch the... This is the strange thing about the narratives that the media can... And look, it's in this case, the media's just drinking the Kool-Aid that's being served to them and running with it. The narrative came from the bosses of the NT Police, because and the the prosecutors and the coroner now and the Coroner's Council, because you've got the footage there which shows you exactly, like, for example, the axe incident. That is 100% a flight and a freeze response, and they admit it on body-worn video. But then, and we know it, everyone knows it,
100%,
and that's fine. Like, that is a natural response for most people in that situation. But you got to own it and say, if you don't own it, if you start lying to yourself and like what has occurred and say that was a critical decision was made and a tactical withdrawal was made and this is a good outcome, best outcome that you can have, you're just lying to yourself. And they're lying to us, and that we know it. We know that's a lie, but they just carry on with doing it. And that's the next thing with the there's body-worn video of the shooting, and I could not be less aggressive in my approach. So we go to and then again they're saying that I'm gung-ho and I'm this and that, bloodthirsty, but we went out there in the way that the police wanted us to go out there, which is exceptionally low level. Be polite, be cautious, be respectful. It actually does become complacent and unsafe, as you can see. Luckily, my training allowed for that complacency, and I was able to look after myself and my partner, but they want that soft approach.
I've seen the footage. I've seen it, and you're right. It escalates, but it's, as you say at first, you're calm as. You
I
are
think
calm
I could be
as.
more polite.
No.
More respectful to him.
Absolutely.
More gentle with him. But yeah, so we go out to the community. We go to the house where he actually attacked the cops with the axe. Basically, the guy there tells us he's not there, but he recently left to another part of the community, shows us a general area. We go to the next area. I think this, as I said, I think this is 11 minutes after we left the station. The next house we look in, we talk to some family members in the front yard. Again, we don't know that they're family members. I had asked if one of the local cops could come out with us because we had an old mugshot, and mugshots aren't going to be completely effective. The Sarge said no, that the local cops wouldn't be coming out with us, so it was up to us in the mugshot. So we didn't know that these people were family. Asked if they knew Walker. They said no. Don't know who he is. He's not inside. Now that we know that they are family, that they were previously just with him and that he'd gone inside. So then, yeah, we walk into the house. So I asked for permission to go into the house, was given it. Again, a point of contention comes up later. All the evidence at the trial was accepted that I was given permission, but then we want to change the narrative a bit. And there's a reason that they do that. If we remember, we can talk about that if we get to the coronial. But I was given permission to enter the house. My partner goes in first. He says he sees someone in the back. He walks in, I follow him in, and that's when Walker approaches us. I wasn't sure that it was Walker, but it was a male fitting, same age, description, same size. He was 5'9", a few kilos lighter than me. So basically the same size. I was very polite, I asked him to come up to the wall. And again, there's this level of complacency. I'm very close to him. I didn't notice his hands going in and out of his pockets. I was trying to ID him. I put my phone up next to his face.
Which is all seen on the footage. And then I eventually do ID him from a little skin fold in his ear. I put my phone away and gently, because it's just a gentle day. I ask him to put his hands behind his back, and that's when he kind of like launches at me, I guess. He started
striking the top of my head multiple times. And I remember thinking, as soon as he started doing that, obviously my training kicks in. I step back a little bit. I raise my left shoulder to protect my neck. I raise my arm and my hand to protect my face. And I remember thinking it was strange that he was like hammer fisting me, like striking me without his not on his knuckles. So I look at his hand at that point, and that's where I saw the blade, just a metal blade protruding from his grip. At that point, I stepped back and I jabbed him in the face with my left hand. I ended up getting cut on my forearm a couple of times because he was trying to obviously stab me in the neck. He stabbed me in the shoulder. Again, luckily it hit the bone. But I jabbed him then, stepped back, went to pull my Glock. I knocked his other hand off my Glock. And then he focused on my partner. I shot him once in like the side. And the bullet traversed through the muscle, ended up in his psoas muscle. The medical evidence is that that bullet was not incapacitating at all. But then him and my partner hit the deck. They're still wrestling, and I can still see him and his right hand trying to stab my partner. I move directly, like close as to them. I put my hand on my partner's back to make sure he doesn't move into my firing line. I fire 2 more rounds into Walker's torso, at which point I see him stop trying to stab my partner. I push my partner off. I roll Walker onto his chest, trapping his arm under him with my weight, holster my Glock, and that's when I slowly work his arm out, and he's still got the blade in his hand. That's when I identified it as a pair of metal scissors.
Mm-hmm. You can still see that all on the footage.
See it on footage. At that point, we cuff him. My partner, kind of like he was suffering from auditory exclusion, didn't really hear the gunshots. A third cop outside had come to the door, and he saw the second and third shots. And his statement is, as per the evidence, is that he saw the second and third shots go off as we were still fighting on the ground. Even after the third shot, I'm still fighting. Basically, I work his hand out, I cuff him, remove the scissors from his grip. At that point, the community's gone a bit wild outside. My partner and I, we've got to get him out there for safety, but we got to start. Our first thought process then is medical. We've got to give him medical aid. So we pick him up under his armpits and we drag him to the police cage. We get in the police cage with him. And obviously there's no nurses there or anything, so we're heading straight back to the cop shop. And the first thing I do in the cage is I pat my partner down head to toe to make sure he didn't get he wasn't bleeding, didn't feel that he'd been stabbed and he was gone out. So I clear him. Then we clear Walker from other weapons because he still had enough left in him that if he had another weapon, he could still go. Once I cleared him of other weapons, we uncuff him, start taking his shirt and pants off and start getting to work. And that's when we get back to the police station and we just keep working on him for 70 minutes, basically. There's not much we could do. He was suffering from a tension pneumothorax and a hemothorax, so his chest cavity, the air was compressing his lungs, the blood was filling up his lungs. There wasn't much we could do, except for the basics. Get a defib out and just wait for him to go. And just we're working on him. So from that point on, I wasn't really aware of what else was going on command-wise, what plans were going on in place, but I was just focused on him.
And from go to woe, from initial walk-in and then the shooting, what are we talking, a couple of minutes?
I think it was, a couple of minutes max. And the majority of that time would have been spent on the ground trying to cuff him and get the blade out of his hands. It was obviously 3 shots, 3.1 seconds apart. First shot, obviously, and then 2.6 seconds later, the second, 0.5 seconds later, the third. But a couple of minutes in there. That's it. And
that's, as you say, how quickly, and this is what I want to highlight to civilian listeners, that a calm situation can turn violent and with catastrophic circumstances.
Yeah, correct.
A number of minutes.
Yeah.
And so that happens, and then as you say, you check your partner. At this point, you know you've been stabbed yourself. Yeah. Does your partner try and help you with first aid?
Not really, because I could feel it. Obviously, the stab wound turns out was very minor. It hit the bone in my shoulder, which is very lucky. But I didn't feel it that much at the time. The focus then because of the adrenaline and all, you don't feel it. After I checked my partner, we're basically just focused on Walker. We get to the point in the station where I do mention, because you're slowing down, you start feeling it. I mentioned to the boys, like, once he passes, obviously not in so I can hear, but I say once he passes, because it got to the point that we understood that we weren't going to get
medical aid
out to us. The Sarge out there ended up calling the... Because here's the thing as well, like, there should have been a direct line of command and control and communication, like, from her, basically from us to her, straight up to the comms room. There should be a command element, and then straight back down to keep it all neat and tidy. What ended up happening, it seems, is that everyone started... There was obviously the initial comms to the comms room, and then all these other elements started phone calling each other and making this very messy... People are getting orders from different places. People are repeating information that didn't need to be repeated. The Sarge out there ended up calling the nurses who had been evacuated, who were out back in Alice having dinner, thinking that was the contact for... It's not called RFDS up there, but basically the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Yep.
Obviously, that's not the RFDS. That's the nurses that evacuated. But again, that probably wasn't even the Sarge's role. The Sarge should have just called up to comms, and that should have been a immediate action on. Is that you're out there with no medical aid, so the next step is... That should have been automatic. But, yeah, so it did seem to get a bit messy. But I did I told the boys, once Walker passes, we need to check my shoulder because I'm feeling it now. Eventually he did pass at about 70 minutes. So we'd been giving him CPR for a while. But I knew, and the other boys knew there, with some advanced medical training as well, that with the injuries that he had, we were just pumping more. Like, you're doing CPR, but there comes a point where it's ineffective. The general rule that people know is that you keep doing it until an ambo comes. But in real life, there's situations where that's not the case, and this is one of them. In the medical, initially, like, it was questioned whether that was right that we stopped, but the multiple medical experts, believed it was the right decision because there's nothing we could do. We were just pumping more blood into the lungs, basically.
So basically, essentially, you're basically filling the lungs with blood that eventually
if you're doing CPR...
Yeah.
It's like if you just had a catastrophic bleed and you don't deal with the bleed first and you just start doing CPR, you're just assisting the blood leaving the body.
Yeah.
Similar to that. So we stopped doing CPR. We checked my shoulder, and I had a torch on my shoulder attached to my shirt, so I couldn't actually see my shoulder. So I took off my police shirt, saw that it had a hole in it, and it was a bit damp. I was wearing an undershirt, hole in it, and a blood patch. And again, I knew this was minor now because it hit the bone, but I was also thinking from an evidence perspective. So we're taking photos of this because I knew it was a clean shoot. I knew I'd followed my training to a T, knew it was a potentially life or death situation, that our lives are at risk because of his actions. But I also knew that from an evidence perspective, this was near perfect. Not only do I know what was occurring, I have a stab wound in my shoulder. So we took photos of that, and then at some point my Glock got taken off me for evidence reasons. The community out the front was at the front of the station, but they weren't being too... Some people were throwing rocks, but nothing crazy. But there was definitely a level of heightened fear at points. And then at some point a plan was put in place. So these nurses came from a nearby community, but Walker already passed. A plan had come, and I don't know who made this plan, but the plan was made that we would drive out to the airfield because reinforcements were coming. So a few police vehicles would drive out there. The ambos would drive out there with us. Turns out, I don't think I even knew it at the time. I just thought it was for more seats to get the reinforcements back. But I think they've admitted it was a deception plan to make the community think that Walker was in the ambo and getting airlifted to Alice. But we get out there. I say, like, hey, bye to the reinforcements. I jump on the little police air wing, just with myself and the police pilot. The ambos and stuff, they drive back to the cop shop, and then on the way back, that's when the community started erupting. They start pelting rocks at the cop cars and the ambos. The ambo windscreen ends up getting smashed, and one of the ambo women's get knocked out by a rock. And I fly back to Alice Springs, which is about a 40-minute flight. So the pilot obviously radios ahead, and we're 40 minutes out to the police station. And then, as you know, I get back to Alice, get to the air wing, which is right next to the airport, or it's at the airport. The pilot, legend of a lad, real good dude, but he has to now sort out his plane because we don't know what's going to occur the rest of the night, so he's fueling up, sorting that out. I wait out front move out the front of the air wing to imagine I'm getting picked up because it was radioed through for a pickup, And I ended up waiting out there for about 15 minutes on the side of the road in Alice, in my police uniform, but with no kit. I didn't have my police shirt on, but I got my pants and my boots on and my undershirt. And so I call my sarge up and I'm like, "Hey, mate, just waiting on the side of the road here. What's going on?" And he was like, he thought the detectives were coming to pick me up, but they just were late. So he came straight running out to try and grab me, but by the time the detectives did get there first. So I'm again glad that it was me, because I think in another situation, because I think one of the most traumatic things you could potentially do in the job is for an offender to try and kill you, for you to use lethal force against the offender, you then try to save the offender with your medical skills and fail and him pass away. It's one of probably the most traumatic things you can do in the policing job. And then to be that same night I was just thinking, it was just a weird thing for me to be sitting thinking that night. I was like, this is strange. This is a strange response.
I'm on my own.
Yeah, this is a strange response by the NT police. That as far as caring for your staff go.
And at that point, so as you mentioned, you have the adrenaline drop. You've now, what's happened? Do you inform, do you tell your mum and dad that something's happened?
I think that night, so then from the detectives, we go to the hospital, I get my shoulder cleaned up, get a tetanus shot because we were worried about transmittable diseases more than anything. From there, I go back to the station, talk to some detectives real quick, but basically it's all good, head home, have a sleep, be back here in the morning. I go back home, I think I sleep for a few hours, and the next morning I call them and just say that I have a discussion with them that obviously there'd been an incident. I didn't tell them too much, but I said that I'd been stabbed, the offender tried to stab my partner, and I did what I had to do. And kind of the way, obviously it's nearly a known potential of the job, being a police officer. I think some police maybe join up thinking they don't think about these things, but I think you should think that of all the options that should happen, this is definitely one of them. This is part of the potential job role. So
of course,
I guess I always knew that it was a potential thing, and so that my parents were probably they were not blind to the realities of the job. So they were all right with it. Obviously, they wanted to come up and see me, but at that point, I was only rostered for 2 days off, and then I was to return to work. So there's not much point coming up at that point. Then everything started changing. I went into work on the Sunday and got cleared by the psych to go back to work. Bosses start, being bosses, and they ended up asking me to take the week off and return to work, I think, on Friday. And at the end of the day, it's up to them what occurs. So that was the new plan. So at that point, I updated my parents. At that point, I'm basically living with my cousin. So my mum and aunt decided to come up for a visit because we hadn't seen each other in a while. So yeah, she flew in maybe on Monday, or Tuesday. Probably Tuesday, actually. I actually flew in on Tuesday. But yeah, during that first couple of days, I guess the detectives had been sent down from Darwin to Alice. I guess the homicide detectives, and they had started going through the body-worn footage and started taking statements from the members. And yeah, that's when it gets a bit strange, a bit...
Yeah, well, we're going to dive into that now. So the shooting happens, and after any police shooting, and this is from my understanding, there's a critical investigation that takes place, but yours is different. On the 13th of November, you're arrested.
Yeah.
And then you're charged with murder.
Yeah.
What's the difference here with the critical incident? Because we've had, and this is where Benny ties into it again. So go back and listen to Benny Hoskins' episode 116. He has a similar incident 5 years earlier. He shoots an African male and who lunged at colleagues. He has a critical incident, then he's cleared to go back to work. Why? Talk me through this process.
So what we know now from looking at the evidence that's all come to light, we know that on the Sunday the Sarge made notes that were hidden for a long time. The Sarge made notes that basically supported my version of events and the other boy's version of events, that that the plan wasn't made yet, that she was waiting for intel from within the community on Saturday night to start preparing a plan. That's from her notes she made the next day. She also said that she'd given us a direction to take up a zero tolerance approach within the community. She then gave evidence that she'd never made notes regarding the event, which we found these notes. So that's a lie that she told, and her statements get looser and looser to the point now that her latest version of events, I think, is that she expected us to play basketball within the community all night and basically just hang out. And somehow by like osmosis, we would collect intelligence on Walker's whereabouts. So that occurred on Sunday, and that's given to the detectives down in Alice. Then the detectives in Alice are told on around Monday and Tuesday that if I attempt to leave Alice, that they are to arrest me for murder. They refuse. These are the Darwin-based detectives. They refuse. They say that they've watched the footage and gained initial evidence, and from the evidence that they have at the moment, obviously my version of events is given on the body worn. He was stabbing me, he was stabbing you. Later in the body worn video in the night, there's a bit more detail that I give. I say that I was talking to one of the cops out there, and I say, hey, initially I thought he was punching me, then I saw a blade, and then he stabbed me, and he was trying to stab you. So my version of events was given on the body worn video, and the detectives in Alice say, yep, our evidence matches the body worn video. We believe this is a justified shoot. We refuse to arrest. So they were ordered to. You can't. You can order anyone to do anything you want, whether that's lawful or not. Is a matter for that person and you. So they were ordered to arrest me, and they refused if I was to leave Alice. Then I believe on the Tuesday, the Chief Minister put in place the head of ICAC, the head of the Independent Commission Against Corruption of the NT, to oversee the investigation of the shooting into me. Same day, he flies to Yuendamu with the police commissioner, and he gives a speech that's in the media a lot, and he mentions like consequences will flow for this shooting. Basically, an appeasement speech to the community. Obviously, there was a big blow up about that speech because it looked like the perception is that he's saying that the wrong thing has been done, and we're going to make something right from this. And then I think on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, on the Tuesday Arvo, I get directed to fly to Darwin under the guise of for my own safety, because earlier in the day my name and my photo had been released on social media. One of the detectives had started investigating who and how my name had been released. He tracked it back to the first person, who was a cousin of a police officer out at Yuendamu. At that point, he was directed to no longer do no more follow-ups. So I don't know how my name got released, but you can imagine, imagine a police officer leaked my name and image. So they utilised that to get me to Darwin. But on Monday, before my name and that had been released, there's already notes discussing that they might have to move me to Darwin because they believe if they arrest me in Alice, it might be detrimental for the investigators, because obviously that was my station, that was my community. So I get directed to go to Darwin Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'm up in Darwin with my mum. She came up as well. We're staying on accommodation on police campus or police base up there. Throughout the day, the head of ICAC that I just mentioned that got put in place by the CM, he has a meeting with some police commander. Within that meeting as well is the head of the Northern Territory Aboriginal Justice Department. For some reason, she's there. Never been explained, and she's never answered questions about this. She now works for the police, getting paid a high role for an anti-racism role in the NT Police. So the head of Aboriginal Justice, the head of ICAC, and some police commander and some other police are at this meeting. The head of ICAC is basically ordering them to arrest me. The police have then given evidence later that this order had nothing to do with their decision to arrest me. Yet after I was arrested later that day, they email the head of ICAC saying basically, hey, he's been arrested as per your desires. So it's very messy what happened and the decision. So the detectives in Darwin, because the Alice Springs detectives who are in charge of the case, have refused to arrest me. So then they stand up this other group of detectives in Darwin. These detectives are still going. On their notes, there's not enough evidence to arrest. Everyone's pushing for the arrest to occur. There's not enough evidence. Some notes say DPP have requested me be arrested and charged. Some notes say that they've requested the DPP to let me be charged, basically. But basically, the main detective that ended up running the file or running the job and arresting me, on Wednesday morning, I believe, he writes in his notes, there's not enough evidence to arrest. This process is being rushed. A few hours later, he goes to a meeting. The executive of the police is the commissioner of the police. He's sitting outside. The commissioner leaves the meeting. He walks into the meeting and gets ordered to arrest me. He then writes in his notebook. So there's basically... His notebook looks like basically like this. Not enough evidence to arrest. A few hours later, no evidence has come in. He gets ordered to arrest me. Then he writes, I've now become to the requisite belief that there is enough evidence to arrest on the basis of this, that a crime has been committed. We all know that he's just covering his ass. He knows he's covering his ass. Because you cannot be, I believe he knows he's covering his ass. For the lawyers listening. You cannot be ordered to arrest someone. So the power of arrest is a personal power. And if you come under undue influence by, say, executive or senior members, that can be seen as a unlawful arrest. So he's just covering his ass, I believe, by writing that. Because nothing's changed, except for the order that's coming in.
That's right.
So then him
Sounding very political now.
Very political. Or at least pushed from the bosses for whatever reasons they have. Then basically then he comes, he talks to his team and he tells his team, hey, if you guys don't believe with the arrest, I'll do it myself. And a few of his team, still in their statements to this day, have said that they don't believe in the arrest. So, very messy. I guess there's the factor that obviously Kumajai was Indigenous as well, which is a factor as much as I would not say there's the argument that, or the discussion point that if I was to shoot a white person or a person of a different race, this never would have occurred, no one would have known about it. And I say it's a valid point, and obviously the Kumajai's race was a element of thought for the people involved. We know that for a fact. The fact being that the head of Aboriginal Justice was involved in meetings about my arrest. The Crown Prosecutor has said multiple times in court that this case is more important because it involves the death of an Indigenous man. So we know that race is a factor, or they made race a factor. But I say that I was arrested because the police involved at the end of the day are bad. They're bad cops. They're bad cops that either they don't know the law, they don't know the physiology and psychology of combat, or they just cowards that follow orders. But that's the real reason I was arrested. Because it could be, maybe it's political, maybe it's based on race, maybe it's what's it called? It's where they, you do the wrong thing for the right reasons, perhaps. Noble cause corruption. They might have thought the right thing was to arrest me to appease one population group, and then let the courts clear me, which appeases another population group, to protect them from doing the hard things. So there's all these other factors that may have been involved. At the end of the day, it comes down to these cops, I believe, are bad cops, and they either rolled over and did something that they didn't believe in, or they have no idea about what the actual legislation is, what the laws are, what the defences are, and what the physiology and the psychology of combat is.
And for you, so you're charged with murder, an investigation starts, you're now in the fight of your life.
Yeah, correct.
And you know yourself, as you've said, throughout the shooting happens, you know that it's a clean shot, you've got all the evidence. How are you travelling mentally at this point?
So, straight after the arrest, because I got arrested up in Darwin in front of my mum, I got put in a cell just for 5 hours. That night, I was very, very angry. That's where I was feeling. I was angry.
Would I say this to humiliation as well?
Maybe, but I don't recall it too much because I felt like the humiliation and the weirdness probably comes. And it might have been there, but compared to compared to the attempts at humiliation later down the path, the invasion of privacy and that stuff later, that on that night of arrest, nothing compares. Which is crazy. The thing that you're a cop being put in a watch house where with people that you work with, the potential humiliation of that, can't even remember it compared to what the invasion of privacy and the focus from the media later. I think I was angry, and then in the cells, and I was worried obviously for my mum, so I got one of the boys to come down and look after her. I just reassured her because obviously I couldn't didn't want to show any emotion because I didn't want her to work. She was like, this was
She's
crazy.
your mum.
She's my mum, and she's like kind of like helpless to this fact. She's just watching as an observer. So I'm in the cells, and I was very angry in the cells. And then it got to the point where the police denied me bail. And that's when it kind of like really hit me, because I was like, this is all going to get... Because I kind of thought like, this is all going to get sorted out. This is just a big misunderstanding. They're just making it dumb.
The investigation's going to prove this.
Yeah, and I was like, it's going to get sorted out very quickly. But then when I'm sitting in the cells and I'm informed that the police have denied me bail, then it kind of like hits home that, oh, tonight I'm going to jail for however long, what would have ended up being 2.5 years until I got a trial. In Darwin with people, because obviously you arrest people in Alice, they go up to Darwin's prisons, whatever, but I was like, I'm going to, as a cop in a jail in Darwin, I was like, that's where I'm going. We get on the managed that back then you could call the judge, the on-duty judge, and request bail through a judge to the next higher up level. That was based off a statement of facts. So at the time, all we had for the file, I guess, was a statement of facts. You had the body worn, you can't show the judge the body worn, but you read out a statement of facts. And whoever did the statement of facts, they've just based it off the body worn video. So the statement of facts, the initial one that was read out that night, I remember I'm standing in the watch house, all the watch house staff are listening. One or two of the detectives are there, like the rat detectives who are against me, but the watch house staff, they're all good folk, and all of us there were standing with like our breaths being held, listening to the statement of facts, and we're all being kind of confused at the same time. It sounded even like the judge was confused because the statement of facts just said it how it was. Very like, basically like, I was we're trying to arrest some guy, Walker. He stabbed me. He tried to stab me. He stabbed me. He tried to stab my partner. He fought with my partner. I shot him 3 times. He was still struggling. End of. So that statement of facts was read out to the judge, and the judge near immediately goes, yeah, of course, bail's granted. And for murder, bail was nearly never granted. But the police didn't give me... If it was up to the police, I would have been in jail for 2.5 years. Luckily, that judge, the statement of facts was read, the judge gave me bail. Before I even left the watch house, the police had released to the media that I'd been given bail for some reason. So then there's like obviously a security threat, but basically we get to the hotel, get out of there. That night it's all just, once I'm released, there's the massive sigh of relief, and then it's kind of just surreal, you know. I get to the hotel, it's a blur. I get to the hotel, we change rooms because we're worried about the rooms being bugged by the cops. Phone's been taken while I'm in the watch house, my phone's been seized, so I've got no way to contact my mates or my family, like other than like through my mum's phone, but I don't have my mates' numbers or nothing like that. And then so then get back to camp, it's all just a bit of a blur, and it's just still, for the first little bit, it's just surreal. For the first few weeks, it's surreal. It's kind of like, this isn't happening and this will be over soon. And everything will get fixed. And then it just starts dragging and it's not getting fixed. So it took 2.5 years to even get to trial. Yeah,
which COVID came in. And
and you know what? COVID wasn't the reason it really got delayed. At the end of the day, it got delayed because the prosecution didn't have a case. That's what I think. None of the delays for the trial came through us. We went up, despite COVID, we got up to Darwin earlier. We quarantined, trying to get ready for a trial. The prosecution refused to quarantine. All this happened, but back home, basically, initially, surreal. And then you
life's on hold, isn't it?
Your life's on hold. And because you're at that age, probably any age, but I was 28, you know, where you really should be going hard in your career. You do it at different times. But I was at the point where I was going hard career. I was sorting everything out, fixing everything up. And now my life's on hold. And because you're on hold, you're going backwards because everyone else is going forwards. So it got really, really hard back home.
And this is where I'd like to talk about that mental...
Yeah, for sure.
How did you stay like mentally staunch?
I think so. I got 2 dogs. And so automatically you got responsibilities. So that was the lifesaver thing. Because without the 2 dogs, there was no reason for me to wake up in the morning and get out of bed.
This is what I want to talk about, because this is where it brings it in beautifully. The media attention that you got, that, and this, I'm watching my words here, but essentially, mate, they were pushing and pushing to either see you locked up for life or hanging from a rafter. And I'm watching my words as I say that, because I've been there myself. I know what it's like to get to that point of wanting to end your life. Had that thought crossed your mind?
I'll say, like, it never got to the point where I wanted to end my life, but the thought, which is a bad enough thought in itself, to come into my head, and the attention from the media, the pressure from the media. I think I said it earlier in the podcast. They were just drinking the Kool-Aid that was being handed out to them from the NT police, from the executive. So the pressure really spurned from the NT police, because it got to the point where you have this thought, and it's a stupid thought to have, but it comes across. I'm like, if I did kill myself, would that then make a difference? Would then they realise that they're treating me wrong, or something like that? For me personally, I think the menu option for me for, like, it's going to sound bad, or of hurting myself or hurting others, is probably the other way. Or I'll hurt myself through different ways, through drugs, alcohol, stupid behaviour, whatever other way it is. But I got to the point where I felt like a proper, like, I just felt like a loser. I was like, these scumbag cops up north, I was like, they are fucking with me, but fucking with my family. Like, they're making my mum, my dad cry. They're making my granddad cry that I've never seen cry before, because he watched the body-worn footage and he broke down and he just said, like, this is so wrong what's happening to you. So I was like, these guys are messing with my family. And I was like, they're my enemy. Like, they're my enemy. This is not, because it's not an investigation. It's the most, we'll go into it as well, because this adds to the stress and stuff. It was, I think they say that you shouldn't attribute corruption to something, or malice to something, where incompetence could be the answer. Whereas this had both. In my view, this investigation was purely incompetence and malice. Because I'm sitting at home feeling these feelings, and I'm like, my training is, I've got an enemy in front of me, I sort that enemy out. The enemy's attacking my family, I sort that enemy out. But that's what they wanted. They wanted me to break. As you said, the NT police were putting so much pressure on me, and they do it to other cops. They've done it to other cops, and they've succeeded. They wanted me to either commit suicide or to snap and act up in a way that they could say in front of the media, he's done this, he's what we say he is, kind of thing.
And like you said, and we've had discussions, on the phone that it was perceived in the media that you had this power over all these people to, like, run your own show. And like, we've had this discussion.
So when you look at it and you go out there, I was the youngest police officer there. I was the second most junior, only by a month. So the next most junior cop. So I was 28. I think I was 28.
Yeah.
So I was the youngest by, I think, at least 5 years, if not more. The most junior cop, only, like, me and the next youngest cop there had 1 month. We joined up within a month of each other. So I'd only been on the road 3 years. There's other cops there who have been in the job for 10, 15, 20 years. And yeah, the story was that I had somehow taken control of this whole operation. But I'm just a cop on the ground that was ordered to go out. I'm a constable. I was ordered to go out there. I was ordered to arrest. I filled a leadership vacuum at points, and at the end of the day, I did what I was. My orders were to arrest Walker, and I arrested Walker. Walker made the decision to try and kill 2 police officers. The same decision he'd probably made the other day, but he didn't need to because the cops ran from him. But yeah, he made the decision. I reacted as I was trained to do so. So I'm back at home basically, and I'm feeling these feelings. I'm like, the only reason I'm getting up in the morning is to walk the dogs, because it's a responsibility, and I think like, you have to. It doesn't matter how you feel. You could, and I think that discipline comes from what we spoke about in the military. It's, you can build it in any way you want, but the military discipline of so in the military and the infantry, they go, once you finish an operation, it's my weapon, my kit, myself. You clean your weapon, you sort your kit, then once those things are done, no matter how exhausted are you, do them first, then you look after yourself. So my thoughts, I guess, I don't know what it is, but my values, I guess, it's kind of come to that. Like, my responsibilities come first and then me, which is good because it got me up out of bed. And then every day, no matter how shitty I felt, I'd walk the dogs and I'm like, oh, I'm up now, I may as well work out. I'll try to eat right. I would try to sleep. I would try to stay away from like using alcohol too much to medicate.
Are you looking at what the media's saying at this point?
I think you couldn't really get away from it a lot. Looking at the media, I can't remember too much where the media comes in when it starts being used, because the media was definitely used as a tool. Because the media, I've used the media as a tool. The NT police have used the media as a tool. The coroner has used the media as a tool. The media shouldn't be a tool, but you can see how the media can be used as a tool.
Well, it's something that your good friend Heston Russell talked about on a podcast when things got really bad for him, and it was his little sausage dog Copper that snapped him out of that he was going to end his life. Yeah, and I bring Hesto in because it's, as you say, that purpose. I've got there's an actual other living thing on your dogs, and that that's, and as you say, you didn't get to that. It didn't get that dark like it does for others, but
I think it did get dark, but it's in a different way. Like you got a different menu, Like some people, maybe you go suicidal, maybe you go homicidal, but it's going to sound bad, but people have a different menu.
But and I think too, what I see is that, and good, what you just touched on is right, that if you're pushed enough, the human body can only take so much, and then you either break and you, as you say, where you could go that homicidal route or go the other way, and because the pressure that was being applied to you, mate. As I say, I don't know how you still found to get up every day. Well, it came
like I needed to. So luckily throughout life, I'd figured out some tools for myself, particularly with the media. When you read something, like you read all this like stuff about you, you kind of like can get stuck in a circle of thinking about it. And the more you think about it, that stronger. It's the same as if you do something embarrassing or something like that, and you keep remembering it. That every time you remember it, that neural pathway's getting stronger and stronger. And I read a book, I think when I was a kid, by Mark Devine, and I think it was called The Unbeatable Mind. And there's one little tool that I've always remembered from it. Obviously, all the tools are there. Box breathing to lower your heart rate. But one of the things he said, whenever you get caught in this cycle of thinking about an event that's working you up, and you want to stop thinking about it, but you can't stop thinking about it, it's like you've got to break that neural pathway by thinking about it. You can't just think about something normal. You have to reconnect to something stupid. So his example was think of a pink elephant. So, man, So if I get stuck thinking about something the whole time, I'm like, oh, this person said this about me, they don't know this. I'll just be like, I have to start thinking about pink elephants. Mate, for some points in my life, my head was nothing but full of pink elephants, I reckon, just walking through life. So, but it had to be, because when this pressure's being put on me, because we get to a point, it takes 9 months of this, and I'm trying to I'm like, it's like I was drowning and I was trying to grab onto anything to stay afloat. So I would volunteer, but going out in public's hard. So I'd volunteer at homeless shelters until the homeless would figure out who I am, and then it got a bit iffy for the staff there. I'd do work in warehouses and try to stay busy, because I was like, I'm a man, I have to work. Like, I can't sit at home on my ass. It's the worst thing for me is to sit there and do nothing.
You need purpose.
I'd rather a shit job rather than no job kind of thing. So we get to a committal it takes 9 months just to get to a committal. A committal is where the prosecution present their case. Basically, their case was based off really 2 apparent expert evidence statements and the narrative from the Sarge that I disobeyed orders and stuff like that. The Sarge's statement is obviously contradicted by her own notes. We can go down that path, but that's just contradicted by her own. Her own statements contradicted herself, and they're contradicted by other statements. But the police, it suited the police, so they used it. They then utilised this NT use of force expert, it's his first time giving expert evidence as a use of force subject matter expert in this situation. He becomes embedded in the investigation team, which is called Operation Charwell. Operation Charwell, and this is what I'm getting towards with the pressure that's coming on me, because it's in conjunction. It's like it's tactically created. It's being orchestrated, by the police within, I believe, the investigation team. Their mission, So they've got a mission line, and the mission for the Operation Charwell Criminal Investigation Team was to create a brief of evidence in support of the charge of murder. So it's not to investigate the shooting, it's to find evidence that supports the charge. So already it's a biased mission statement. Now this NT use of force expert, he's embedded in the investigation team, he's part of Operation Charwell. He is so incompetent in this regard that him and the other lead investigators have to contact the Queensland Police to figure out how to do a use of force report for a shooting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they request a use of force report for a shooting for the template of it from Queensland Police. He then sits down with the lead investigators for Operation Charwell to try and figure out how to do it. He is later to be found by the coroner detective, that he's using outdated training. He's wrong about a number of factors. He hasn't been given the full evidence, and he's biased. But he's one of the experts, and he was initially used despite PSC, Professional Standards Command, recommending that he not be used because there might be a perception of bias, because he was involved in the NT-Police training for use of force when I went through college and stuff like that. He gets embedded, and basically they go, no, he's not the use of force expert. He's just there to give the real use of force expert background on the NT-Police training. So then they reach out to an American expert. His name is Jeffrey Alpert, and his job is to basically be an expert witness by the sounds of it. He's an academic over in America. They've reached out to him, and you can see on the notes, and we only find this stuff out later because we don't get provided the brief basically until the committal, and it's not the full brief, but we get some of this info. So it's NT guy, Sarge's narrative, and the American guy. The detectives reach out initially to the American fairly early on in the case, and they have a conversation with him, and they tell him what they want, and he goes, well, if you've charged your lad for murder, definitely don't go and get a brief off Bill Lewinsky. He's this other use of force expert over there in America or Canada, runs the Force Science Institute. He was like, don't get a report off him because he'll clear your boy. So he knows they don't want to clear me. Then they're like, oh, thanks for that. Won't go to him. We need to talk to you offline to make sure you're a good fit. If you're a good fit, we'll get you cleared with the bosses, and then we can pay you for your report. He ends up getting paid $100,000. So he's already shown his bias by telling them, don't go to this expert. He'll clear your boy. Come to me. Pay me my $300 US an hour, you know? And then... Yeah, so he basically was... let them know that he was happy to write that, basically, because they call him up and they're like... Or they email him and they're like, we need to talk to you offline to talk about some stuff that we can't put into email, basically, which is already sus. But they get to the point where they agree to work with him. They find him a good fit. And that's where we get to at the committal. So it's based off the two expert statements and the narrative from the Sarge, and the judge at the committal basically goes, well, there's two experts saying that he's done the wrong thing. So, yeah, we'll go ahead to trial. So now we've got the brief. We've got a tentative trial date booked, I think, for August 2022, nearly a whole nother year away. But now we have the brief. The brief is nearly 50,000 pages. Now, one of the tactics I think that was done here was to throw so much workload at you that you can't possibly get through it all. But also to make that, like, the workload so big that you can't, because there's going to be some information there in notes, in statements, that'll be really damaging for the police, and they're going to hope that you can't find them. But and they're doing this to civilians, they're doing this to other cops. It's a tactic that, like, bad cops will use. And it's a legal tactic too. But then now I have a purpose. My purpose is to go through the file to assist the legal team. My purpose is now to investigate this investigation. So I go through every page in that document, and we end up finding some, like, really beneficial information for us. One, we found that the Sarge had actually made notes. That she said that she'd never made notes, but we found that she had made notes. The only reason we found that was through a brief note in a random detective's notebook that prior to taking a statement off her. The detective got a call from the sergeant's lawyer saying that she's just made up a chronology to assist her with your interview. We're going to bring it. And I was like, oh, notes. Found them. Subpoenaed them. The notes contradict her interview and her statement. We then get lucky again, and we find that the American lad, he'd actually emailed the investigators one night, and the email was something like, hey guys, I've just misplaced my draft report that you guys have made changes to. Can you please send it again, and I'll happy to make the changes. And then 10 minutes later he goes, oh no, all good, found it, don't worry about it. So if he hadn't made that error, misplaced that report for 10 minutes, we would have never had this hook. So then we subpoena all the emails. We start finding that these guys are working on this report together. They're making edits, like tracking changes on a Word document. The detective's like, hey, we've added these changes. You can see it in the track changes section. It gets to the point where like, hey, you've actually written that the Sarge out there told them to arrest Walker. Does that really make sense of the next paragraph? He's like, yeah, I'll take that line out. So he's being paid $100,000, and these detectives are working with him to make a report that suits the narrative. So my mind has been blown because, like, one, this is gold for us, but it's also been like, how dare these guys?
Well,
They're like basically breaking the law to try and protect themselves, to cover their ass for their rubbish investigation. And yeah, so we're going down this process, still back home, we're getting close to the trial, and throughout this time, Professional Standards Command is laying internal investigations on me. So again, you would have talked to police officers about how stressful an internal investigation can be, how much pressure they put on you. Yep. So in the lead up to a murder trial, a lot of old jobs are being reopened that have been cleared, that they're putting internal investigations on me. In the lead up to the...
So they're trying to find something.
Well, they're trying to make something. They're trying to make something to assist. To assist the narrative. They're trying to, like, after the facts have already been cleared, so then now they're trying to make the facts fit the narrative and trying to say that, make me out to be a bad cop. Because at this point, my police record is clean. But they're trying to make it unclean for the trial. Gets to the point where 6 days before the trial is supposed to start in August 2022, 6 days before a murder trial is supposed to start, they lay a number of internal charges on me. So not only just investigations, 6 days I'm trying to deal with this, and they lay a number of internal charges on me. Not to mention that 12 months after it, they've managed to go through my phone and they've shared all my messages around a large number of detectives and stuff like that, all my personal messages, so that invasion of privacy. Their excuse was this: they used a police power, I think it's section 144, where you can seize an object or an item that's been utilised in an offence. My phone had not been utilised in an offence. After a year, they'd gone through some body-worn footage and they'd found me put my PIN code in. They used that to get into the phone. 2 detectives start going through my phone under the guise of using 144. They say in their statements that they went through the phone on either side of the shooting for about a week, found nothing relating to the offence, to the alleged offence, so then they just went through everything. So as soon as they say, even if 144 was accepted, even if they didn't need a warrant to go through my phone, they're just allowed to take people's phones and go through it all. They should have got a warrant. They didn't get a warrant. Even if 144 was allowed to be used, as soon as they say we found nothing related to the offence, you can no longer look at that phone. But then they go through everything, then they share the contents around.
And then that's when... Is that, at that point, is that where the text messages...
No, they hold on to this.
Right.
They try to get the text messages utilised in the trial, but the judge is like, this has got nothing to do with the shooting. It's, as you know, it's just it's a smear campaign kind of thing that they utilised later. They would have tried to use it in the trial, but they didn't. Prior to the trial... So we have a legal fight prior to the trial. So the judge puts forward a query to the Supreme Court on some legislation. So I have 3 legal defences. Self-defence, which everyone has. I have a law enforcement officer defence, which is basically says that they all overlap, but it says that if I'm acting my duties reasonably, I'm clear. And this is layman's term stuff, but then there's a good faith defence. It says that if I'm acting my duties in good faith, then I'm clear. It's wild, eh?
Crazy.
But the cops actually, so the judge puts forward this question about, is good faith in play? Goes to the Supreme Court. 5 Supreme Court judges go 100%. 5-0 Supreme Court. The police's argument in that Supreme Court was that the first shot could be argued that good faith was in play, because in the first shot you could argue that I was trying to arrest Walker. But in the second and third shot, the argument was that I was trying to save my partner's life, which is not a core function, and therefore good faith. It's hard to explain, but basically what this is, this argument becomes not a argument for my case. It's a legislation argument that then has consequences for every single police officer. So the NT police were trying to remove that defence from me and from the rest of the NT police in order to make the case against me. 5-0, the Supreme Court go, nope, he has it. So the NT police and the DPP appeal that to the High Court. They tell the High Court, hey, if you don't accept this appeal and hear us, there's no point us going to trial, because there's basically no prospect of conviction. But there's that legal defence has been in there the whole time. Morning of the trial, half an hour before I walk in the courtroom, get a phone call on High Court's accepted. The trial's being delayed again. So trial gets delayed. We go to the High Court, still, good faith still in play. Then again, go back to Canberra, wait again. All we want to do is get to try to get this done. And then, in March 2022, there's even more. We get to trial in March 2022, but in a lead up again, we started getting some whispers from the NT police, from some guys still in, that there had been some issue with the coronial report. So at the same time as the criminal investigations going on, the coronial investigations going on. The coronial investigator at the time had found a number of discrepancies in the evidence. He'd found evidence that hadn't been supplied to the use of force experts. For example, there was medical evidence that showed my partner in the room had cuts in his uniform and a cut on his chest that matches a edged weapon, therefore matching my version of events. He'd never been asked about this in an interview. This evidence of his cut had never been presented to the use of force experts. He also found that the investigation was the most biased investigation he'd ever worked on. To the extent that he compared it to another case where a judge said this investigation was so biased in support of a police officer that there should be at minimum internal discipline involved, if not more. He compared it to that case. He basically said the 2 expert evidence shouldn't be used, super biased, had the same issues I talked about before with emails and stuff like that. He brought this to the boss's attention, because he was like, hey, maybe they didn't know. He was like innocent about it. They berate him, basically accuse him of trying to sink the criminal trial, kick him off the case, and he's on sick leave, stress leave, because of what they've done to him. We subpoena that report. The Commissioner of Police fights it. We win, luckily, get all this information, and then we see the draft versions where once he brought it to the attention and got kicked off, they got a new guy in, completely rewrote the report 180 degrees. This is, the best investigation ever. There's no bias. The poor detectives had a hard time because people were mean to them. And then when on the date you can see that we found out about it, they started reinserting his information in just a little bit. But if we didn't find out about that, they would have covered up completely. So there's all this going on in the background, which is like putting on the pressure. The detectives were seen having meetings after court days with Professional Standards Command. So obviously they're colluding to put this pressure on me. They try to get the text messages into the trial. They don't. We finally get to the trial, and their argument is, the case is that the first shot's justified, the second and third are not justified because of Kumjai Walker being on the ground, and they say that he was incapacitated. And again, I've talked about this a bit, but the idea of that 2.6 seconds between first round and second round, it needs to be thought of again from a more scientific perspective, because it takes 1 second after the first round is fired for Walker and my partner to hit the deck. So now there's only 1.6 seconds between them hitting the deck and me firing that second round. Plus, he's still fighting. He's still trying to stab my partner. But for a person's brain in a calm situation, it's been tested that it takes generally 2.5 to 0.5 seconds to assess a change in circumstances, a further 0.5 to 1 second to make a decision about that. So if we're using those stats in a calm situation, there is no way they could ever have proven intent, ever. And that's what he was saying by like the prosecutor saying there's basically no chance of prosecution. And then we finally get up to the trial, and it's 5-week trial, and every day in court is basically, this is what you were talking about before with the media. Every day in court is basically a good day for me. We keep waiting for evidence against me to occur. I think out of 5 days we had 1 or 2 bad days where the evidence was against me, but every single day the media reported that it was a bad day for me in court. When I got found not guilty, everyone was shocked, because based off media reporting, I was going to jail.
And that's, we'll talk about that now, and that, in March 22, and, like, I won't go into it because it's, like, so much media attention. And people, and this is the thing, people have made their decision on you, and this is why I wanted to get you on to talk about it, because people have made their decision based, whether it be other police officers have made their decisions, and I think 99% back you and say, yep, training, qualities training to the letter. And as I've got, become mates with a lot of police now, is that you followed your standing operating procedures to the T, that if a bladed weapon is drawn, your gun is drawn straight away. That's your training. That's what you trained at the academy. So you're following all the standards of what you're supposed to be doing. And yet some civilians have already made their mind up basically off what the media, and as you said, the Kool-Aid that the media took. So, it's
hard, because I think there was even still a fair few police officers, because the body-worn video didn't really get released for nearly 2 years. So a fair few police, and most humans have a default to truth. If someone tells you something, you generally believe it. And society has to work that way. So for a lot of police, they see this, I was arrested. This is the facts they know. I was arrested for the shoot, and there's body-worn video. They would assume, fair enough, that something has gone wrong and I've done the wrong thing. And they did. A lot of cops did for a long time, because they should be able to trust their bosses. They should be able to trust high-level detectives. But it wasn't until the body-worn video came out that everyone started realising, what a stitch-up it was. By that point, maybe a lot of people have already been sold themselves to that notion of what has occurred, and maybe a lot of those people, and maybe a lot of civilians, maybe a lot of police don't understand the physiology and psychology of combat as well. Or maybe they are legends, and if they get in a knife fight with someone, they can disarm them confidently, and they're willing to put their partner's life on the line to go hands-on with someone with an edged weapon. I'm not. I'm not gonna risk that. I'm gonna follow my training. And guess what? My partner's life matters more than an offender's life who's trying to kill me and him.
100%.
I'm fine with saying it.
And that, mate, I think, very well said.
And
so, as you say, the media has portrayed that.
Well, I don't even think the media reported that, because in the trial, a big point of contention was how lethal those scissors are. I think we've both seen footage of people being killed by scissors very quickly. One strike in the wrong place. So there was a contention in the trial about the lethality of the scissors, because the police utilised a pathologist who'd done the autopsy. Eventually they went to her and got a report from her saying, and her report was basically, looking at the scissors, not lethal. Couldn't have caused a lethal injury, looking at them. What turns out had occurred, which we only found out during the trial through either proofing their witnesses ourselves or through cross-examination, was the police had gone to 3 separate witnesses first. One from the AFP, a forensic textile expert, another pathologist, and I think another medical expert. They'd gone to 3 separate experts to get their opinion on the lethality of the scissors. All three of them had opined that they are exceptionally lethal, especially in the area that Kumjal was trying to stab me. To the point where one of them had done a test with pork shoulder under police uniform and undercoat, and he'd managed to penetrate like 2 to 3 inches just using medium force into flesh. So if it was in the right place, lethal. But the police had found those 3 opinions. The police they have to give you that evidence. They can't pick and choose what evidence they want to give you. Like the defense can. So they found that evidence, they hid that evidence from us, and they kept shopping until they found one expert to support their narrative, and they used her.
And this is the thing too that people don't realise is anything can become a lethal weapon.
Yeah,
with force behind it,
100%.
Regardless. A pen. You
exactly.
You stab someone in the neck with a pen.
Yeah, you don't need a weapon at all.
You don't need a weapon.
You know,
this is the thing that people need to realise, that anything under force can become a lethal weapon.
Yeah, I think it's a lack of experience, really, and luckily it's like most people haven't been in a fight. So the media reporting was strange in that, like, with all this, like, what I would say corruption or incompetence occurring in the background, the pressure tactics by them. But it was good in the trial because I finally had the ability to start defending myself. So I gave it. I chose to give evidence. I gave evidence for 3 days, and it was me against, because the American had been kicked out, not because they edited his report. He'd actually been kicked out because it was found that he wasn't like up to scratch. Basically, he wasn't an expert. The NT use of force guy, he was like, it was minimised what he was allowed to say, because again it was classified that he wasn't an expert in areas that he was purporting to be. But again, we finished the trial. I get found not guilty in a very short amount of time by the 12 jurors. Again, the media report that it was a full white jury. It wasn't. There was an Indigenous girl in the jury. There was a Asian girl in the jury. But it was talked about in court that she was Indigenous by the judge. It wasn't talked about because of her race, but it came up that she had a sister who was Indigenous. So there was an Indigenous woman on the jury. The media don't report that. It's just reported as an all-white jury. It's just,
And I think we could go down a rabbit hole there, but we won't.
Yeah.
We'll keep, and this is the thing. So in March 2022, after 3 years, the verdict is delivered to you that you are found not guilty.
Yeah.
And are you thinking, like, mentally, a relief that, okay, this is, the coronial's still going on, thinking, okay, criminally, I've been found not guilty, and I can start to move on with my life? What's happening?
Yeah, 100%. I thought that was time. I thought I was going to go back to the work. It was going to be difficult. Maybe there would be a transfer into state where I was less well known. But I thought I'd be going back to the job, back to working as a cop. But only the same day I got found not guilty, I got suspended again from the cops. But they didn't tell me why. They didn't even contact me directly. They told me through the police association. Then I got sent home and spent the next few months trying to figure out why I was on suspension. And initially I was told it was because of disciplinary issues. But it wasn't. I ended up contacting the head of PSC and being like, what are the disciplinary issues? And they were like, we don't have any idea. We got nothing to do with your suspension. So once that came crumbling down a bit, I got in touch with some boss, and it turns out the reason I was suspended was because the reason they utilised was that I was had a build-up of leave. So I was like, I'll just cash in my leave and I'll come back. And they're like, you can't do that. But it's the government. So I cashed in my leave and I went back to work.
Yeah.
But again, the pressure stayed on. I got banned from every police station. And again, the discipline stuff, that wasn't there. And if it was there, I'd been cleared from it. And again, you can't blame the media too much because the fuel came from the NT police about all this discipline stuff. It had all been cleared with remedial advice, which doesn't even reach the level of this is actual discipline. Even for the shooting, after the murder trial, I went back to work and I got an email saying basically this is remedial advice for the shooting. Done. So you go from a murder trial facing potentially 25 years, and then the cops go, and this comes relevant for the smear campaign. So the cops' actions internally is clearing me internally with an email of remedial advice. That's it goes from potentially 25 years to you get this email. All good. But I go back to the job again. I'm isolated. I've got no purpose because I'm sitting behind a computer with no job. The pressure comes on. We get to the coronial.
I just want to interject here because are you here given a psych evaluation after all this has happened to go back to work?
I was given a psych evaluation, and the psych eval ended up being like, basically it was like we can't tell if he's all good until you give him a return to work program, and how he responds to the return to work program will be whether we determine or not.
Yeah.
But if you don't give him a return to work program, we can't. At the moment, it seems all good but we can't tell. So, but the police refused to give me a return to work program. So basically, I was in purgatory, just sitting in this office building with no. And I was begging for a return to work program.
And are you isolated away from all the other guys?
Completely. So I'm not even near a police station. I'm in a random building in the centre of town with a couple high level bosses, not my people. No role, no purpose, no return to work program. Gets to the point where they try to, based off that eval that we just said, they try to fire me for mental health issues which don't match the eval. It doesn't really work. And then I read the coronials coming up, and I read the new police coronial report, and I read it at work one day, and I just left. I just walked out of the office because, one, I was hating my job there anyway. I was just wasting 8 hours a day. And the new coronial report, again, was basically just, it's what came out. Blame me for everything. Smear. That's the point where I kind of snapped, or not snapped, but just was like, I've had enough. They're going to fire me for something. They're going to blame it all on my feet. And I knew what the outcome was going to be. And I think it was the start of, or mid-2023, I wrote a letter to the media and basically calling it out. Calling the commissioner out, calling the investigators out for their corruption, calling the coroner out already, because the coroner had started. The coronial had started, sorry. And basically calling it all out for the bias smear it was. And that was 2 years ago. And I actually read that letter the other day, and I was like, oh, it's a very foretelling, because now if you look at the outcome of the coronial, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. So I got fired for writing that letter. And then I'm back to Canberra. I'm out of the job. I'm fired.
Is this where you've lost purpose as well? Are you talking?
Yeah, because I guess my purpose had been lost for so long, and I'd been trying to get it back. And even when I got back to the cops after I got my job back, I still didn't have purpose. I was never going to be allowed to be on the street up there again. So I wrote that letter. The coronial starts, and it is just a smear campaign. As you've said, we talked about the medical stuff before that wasn't even brought up. And this is how you know it's a smear campaign. They went through my phone. They found some text messages that were obviously look horrible. I used a racial slur, but I can guarantee you this: there is a lot more racial slurs in that phone that they found against other races, most often my own, that they did not show. So they cherry picked this. It was one text message from me that had a racial slur, and this is how you know they just used the media, and the media just were suckers, and they did what they wanted to do. And the coroner initially drank the Kool-Aid from the cops, because all that evidence that I talked about before, that biased, corrupt evidence from the investigators, that's the evidence that the coroner based her findings off. So my whole point in this whole coroner was hey, even if the coroner is not biased, she's getting fed biased evidence. So she really had an opportunity to be because I think it's come out now that I've made the complaint, and it's got a lot of traction, that she's super biased, because after she delivered her findings in front of an activist flag. But in the first witnesses they used, some cops, I don't even know them, but the first chance they got, the coroner's counsel assisting, her lawyer, showed them the messages that they wanted to use against us. The only reason you would do that is to get it into the media at the very start of the coronial, so you can set the scene. So they didn't say the messages for us. I was the last witness. Me and my Sarge and a couple of the boys were the last witnesses. if it was a real thing, they would have just saved them for us, asked us about them. But they asked these random cops that we don't even know about them as soon as they could, just to set the scene for the media to go. Whew.
But as you've said and you stated, here was a chance to bring forward that evidence of, well, Medivac should have been all the changes. What could have prevented this, or what could have changed the outcome of this? But it wasn't that.
No, we could have looked at like police training. Do we need to upskill police training? Do we need to have stronger SOPs, stronger plans in place so if this happens, we know what to do? Do we need to improve the medevac situation so that we work more in conjunction with the nurses? Do we need to provide more protection for the nurses? All this kind of stuff. And we could look at obviously the family of Walker and his upbringing and be like, what went wrong there? And is there anything that we could have fixed there? But as you saw, it was basically just a wasted opportunity. In my view, we've wasted $11 million, if not more, to write a report to call me names.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that. And I want to just go back just a period of, you escape this and go to the US and you go to Mexico and you do a treatment for it's PTSD, isn't it? So talk me through this.
So I think this is similar to, so I obviously throughout this process I was seeing a psych. I would go to a psych and I got to the point, and the psych was awesome. I found a good psych. I still see her every now and then, but it gets to the point where she's like, you don't need to see me. But I went to her because I'm like, I've seen a lot of guys who go through an incident and they'll be fine. Well, I think they're fine, but it'll rear its head down the path. I didn't want to be that guy for like myself, my family, my missus. I didn't want to be that. So I wanted to, and you're not going to get hurt by going to see a psych. It's either going to help you or just like, not going to be a damaging thing. So then in Mexico, there's this treatment. It's an ibogaine treatment that's come popular in the veteran community over there. It's like an African tree bark that you'll take. You're gonna, it's like kind of like ayahuasca but different. But it's got some studies done on it about its ability to heal brain injury, and we would all have brain injury to an extent. So you can get it from concussion, emotional stuff, and all that kind of stuff. I don't really understand it, but like my brain would definitely have injury with the blasts from the army, with the boxing and all that kind of stuff as well. So I'd planned it for the end of the coronial. This would have been my getaway. I'd go over there, I'd have this, I'd have a holiday, and I would try this treatment. And I didn't really feel like I wasn't at the end of my wits, but I thought it would be, one, I'm curious to new cultural experiences, and I thought it couldn't hinder me at all. So I went go to America, and again, like what I always do, get out of the comfort zone and go over and do something scary. Went over to Mexico and did this treatment for like a week. And look, like it was very interesting, like super, super interesting, put me out of my comfort zone. Obviously I grew through it, but did it have a noticeable change? Like, I don't think so. Am I in a really good place now? Yeah. Is it because of that? Maybe there's a point, but I'm also doing all the right things.
You're eating right.
I'm eating right, I'm exercising, I've got my own. I was trying to get so many, like, for so long you're trying to get jobs and you get knocked back consistently, and I became I was labouring, I was working on a farm. I was at such a high level doing what I believed my purpose was, and then I'm like, working on labouring in a site.
And take nothing away from the guys that do that.
Not at all, but it's not for me, and it's not what I respect them completely, because I was doing it. It's such a respectable job, but it's not for me. It's not where I was aligned with. So I organised that trip for the end of the corona, but then the corona got postponed again. It kept getting postponed, and there's a lot of obviously media attention going like, I postponed the coronial because of all my legal arguments, and I've never wanted to give evidence in the coronial, because all the evidence that they wanted to use against me, they already had. They had the text messages, they had the evidence of my version of events from not just the body-worn video, but from my being cross-examined for 3 days in the criminal trial. But I could see all they wanted me for in the coronial was for these bunch of lawyers, these like 7 legal teams, to have their opportunity to attempt to embarrass me, to take their pound of flesh. That's what it seemed like it was, and that's what it ended up being. Because I was and it's like they had a list. They'd have a list of all these questions to try to attack me with over this. I ended up giving evidence for 7 days in the coronial. And cops talk about it being like...
Well, the pressure of... Yeah.
The pressure of, it's the hardest day ever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, it's hard, but at the end of the day, it's just some lawyers who are doing it for money who, I don't know, want to pat themselves on the back. And they're asking me, at the end of the day, they're asking me questions. And I don't have much respect for them at all, especially the ones involved, because you have like, one, you got the police prosecutor from the crim trial. He ends up straight after the crim trial, near straight after going and defending the NSW corrections officer that shot that shackled prisoner in the back, killed him. Yep. He defended him successfully in the crim trial for murder, but he was against me for. They're just doing it for money. A lot of these people are just doing it for money. In the coronial, you've got these defense lawyers who have defended pedos and rapists, and then they're pretending that they're so shocked and disgusted by text messages, but they're not shocked and disgusted by someone breaking their missus' arm with a metal bar or rocking her in the head. So it's just theatrics. But we got up there, and they could have made their report that they came out with more easily without me giving evidence, because I knew again that if I got in there, I'm not gonna be shy away from telling the truth. So I kept trying to like show how the evidence that they were using against me was that it was a narrative pushed by the NT police to basically cover up all the corrupt behaviour like we've just talked about. And they kept just paying me off. And I was like, all right, well, here's a big one. The narrative is that I am a racist cop, and there's like 3 of us in the NT police, and they're me and my 2 sergeants. So that's when I gave evidence about this this award that was given annually, known as the Coon of the Year award by the TIG. And then next minute 5 senior cops lie on stat deck saying I'm a liar. And it's on YouTube, like this stuff it's being recorded. Yeah. So I literally look at the camera and I was like, boys, don't lie about this. I've got the evidence. And then they still make 5 stat decks saying that I'm lying. And I was annoyed when they wrote the stat decks, because I was like, I only did that to show that the evidence against me was a lie. Like the narrative against me was a lie.
Yeah.
It was just a shitty text message that I shouldn't have sent, 1 out of thousands. But they utilised that to say that had something to do with the shooting. So I put forward this evidence saying, well, hey, your narrative's wrong, because your narrative is that it's just like 3 cops. I was like, it's not, because all of you guys, cops against me, know it's not. And the 5 statements came in, lying on stat decks, which is a crime. It's obviously lying on a stat deck, or perjury if you gave evidence in court, or if you organised it together, it's a conspiracy, which has a lot longer sentencing. And then, so I gave the statements, and then I'm then I provide the evidence that the awards exist, and then the coronial gets postponed again. When we get back, it was just another couple of days of me and my Sarge of the coronial trying to push the narrative back to trying to fix it for the damage we'd done. So again, I never wanted to give evidence, and they would have had an easier time if they didn't make me give evidence. But they made me give evidence just to try and embarrass me. So, and throughout the coronial, we'd obviously made the complaint that the coroner was biased, because she'd gone out to Yuendamu and she'd got painted up and spoken with the locals out there about how the criminal trial should be redone, the trial judge should be speared, as should I. And then, unfortunately, the bias complaint in that process just goes directly to her, and she goes, oh no, I don't think a layperson would find me biased. And even after that complaint, she still thought it was a good idea to deliver her findings in front of an activist flag for the group that has a website calling for me to be speared, calling for the trial to be redone. And then, so that's where we are now. So, and
which we're gonna talk, and we're gonna come off this in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's just been wild, just hearing this, and this is what I mean, the unspun that's been recorded, and and as I said to you, mate, you and I have been speaking for a long time to do this podcast, and I went away and did my own research into it, so I had everything across the board, and there was things that I checked and fact checked because that's what you do.
Yeah.
So as you said, you've been classed a racist. The coronials come through, been classed a racist. $11 million is spent. We've just mentioned that they missed an opportunity where what went right, what went wrong, and this is where I want to bring in your partner, your mum, and your family. Like, this has got to take a toll on them, mate. How have they held together through that? All this stuff. It's mud, mate. It's sticking. Like, how are they travelling?
I think it's been so hard for them, which makes it hard, obviously, because it's like it's harder for them because they're watching me and they're on the outskirts looking in, and they, in their view, that I'm dealing with it myself, kind of thing. And it's always harder if you're on the outside. I think it's nearly easier for me because I've got the power to deal with, to like make some changes. But the family, man, there were points where obviously the family was like so broken from it all, through the injustice of it all, the attacks. Like, my mum and dad are such good people, and they're
so giving and
they're so giving. They do so much.
Amazing people.
Yeah, and my missus is an angel, and they're having to deal with this as well. So it's like, it's so hard. But the only way, I don't know, like the only way you can do it the only way you can help that is to win, basically. And you don't win in the courtroom. No one really wins in the courtroom like this. You kind of win by just moving forward, and it's taken a fucking long time. As you said,
taken a toll on all of you.
Oh, 100%. So it's the only thing that now it's done. Like, it's kind of like, now that I'm good and created a good place and good, opened this like company that I've got now and getting real good work and back on track, and I have, it's not going to go away. This stuff's always, you're going to Google my name, it's always going to be there. Like, there's going to be backlash from us talking today. The same old backlash that there's been for a long time. There's always going to be that, but I think the only fix for what is the damage that's been done to the family is to literally to make it good again. So and in a way, I've made it good again now. Got the purpose back, and
mate, you've always, this is the thing, and this is what I want to highlight. You've always been a good person. There's never, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we've all said things and done things that we wish we could take back. In certain ways that we've responded to situations. But, mate, you've always been a good person. You save lives too.
Yeah.
You didn't just take a life, you save lives.
I think that's what, I had a few anchors, and my family have the same anchors as well. They're solid people, and the anchors are I know who I am. I know who I am. And even though I wasn't there with them, or with my people in Alice or my army mates who are mixed around Australia, I know who I am. I've got a really good community of good people, good support, and we support each other. And so I think you just need to know who you are, find out who you are, and I know who I am. I know who I am the whole time. Because if you didn't know who you are, you start listening to the media.
100%.
And they go, well, if everyone says I'm a piece of shit, then maybe I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yep.
And that creeps in, but you got to shut that down. So I've got the good community. My family have got good community. And they've got purpose, and now I've got purpose. So that's what's fixed it now. And
that, as you just continue to, as you say, it's never going to leave you now. This is. But as long as moving forward, if you just continue to do the good actions that you do, mate, it's like a bag. It's always going to be around, but you don't need to carry it. No, some days someone's going to call you and talk about it. You got to pick it up again. Well, but it's just you can just leave it. Just don't pick it up. And so it's been a long trek, but the thing that I really like. Because I never wanted to do a potty for me. The only reason I'm really doing this is because these same cops and the same
culture in it that's stitched me up is doing the same thing to other cops, and they're pushing other cops to the brink to potentially kill themselves. But also, even if you're not pushing a cop to kill himself, if you're pushing a cop to the point where they're fearful of doing their job, then
that's just
the consequence of society to the victim that needs help, and then because the cops aren't attending now, like the consequences that are occurring because of this, like we need a police force that is strong, has its back, the bosses have the back of the workers, and the workers can actually go out and fight crime and lock offenders up. And guess what? You need to be able to be brave enough to say, if you try to kill a cop, you might get killed. And guess what? Such is life.
100%.
You know?
We've all got decisions to make in life. Like, we've all got choices, and that's it. And and this is the thing that I think this podcast highlights it, mate, that being a police officer, it is a dangerous job.
Yeah.
Mate, look, we won't get into it, but we've only got to see in Melbourne that two police officers made the ultimate sacrifice. Yeah. And only last week.
100%.
And if that doesn't show people how dangerous, and that was going into just a simple subpoena, an arrest warrant, and that's the second shooting this year, and one in Tasmania, 6 weeks before that. How dangerous policing is.
And again, you see, I guarantee you now, as like rough and as disgusting it is, the bosses will come out now next week, and the bosses will say the most amazing things about cops, and the boss of the organisations will love police officers for the next week, because when a police officer dies, the organisation comes out and throws all the pretty words in the world. But I guarantee you, Professional Standards Command, the bosses, the week after, or during this week, still behind the closed doors, are still putting pressure on the boys and girls on the street and still stitching them up the same. They're not looking after the boys and girls on the street. Not all of them. Some are good, and those ones should be in charge.
100%. And, well, mate, we're going to, like, as you said, it's, you can only do what you can do. Yeah. And, how has the support been from your fellow brothers and sisters in blue?
Well, it's been life-saving. Like, I look back on, again, when I talk about some of the anchors, like some of the anchors that I have are literally just them, just talking to them, and the support they've had from me the whole time, the belief, the faith they've had in me. I remember, like, I have a few messages from some of the guys that are they stick with me, and, like, when I'm having my worst days, I can look at these messages and be like, this message is what mattered, because these police officers, for example, like, these boys messaged me straight after the shooting, and it was like this, the patrol group had sat down, and one of these senior cops that I really looked up to messaged me and goes, Zach, we've all just been sitting down, the boys and girls, and we were thinking that if our family was ever in danger, you're the cop that we'd want to attend, because we would trust our family's life with you. And I'm like, fuck the media. Like, fuck some journo who doesn't know me. Like, what does their rubbish headline say that they're just trying to get clickbaits for, that they've never been in danger before, and the bosses that sit behind a desk? I was like, what does their opinion matter compared to that?
Exactly.
And then other cops being like, mate, the shift was safer when you were with them. And the wives being happier when I was with their partners, and the husbands being happier when I was with their partners, like, on the road. So, the support has been unreal. That goodness in the police, that everything good about the police is still there. It's still there. It's just got a lot of pressure on it at the moment.
Well, yeah, it's the like woke policing, and we've gone down and I've had many police veterans on who, and some are still current serving, and they can't really talk on how it, and because they're fearful of the loss of their job. And,
of course.
But the ones that are out can see them. We're in a group of people that we've got some really good that are all out now, and see how policing has changed, even from when you joined to where it is now. I don't know where we're going with. Well, you said it earlier on in the podcast with where Australia's going. It's a scary place. Like, growing up as a young fella, mate, like both of us, because we're similar in age. There's not many years between us. I think there's about 12 months between us. That it's just not the Australia that I grew up in or you grew up in. It's just gone so... Everything now, we're ruled by the minority, not majority anymore. Yeah. You know, it's just...
Yeah, it's a weird place.
Yeah, definitely. And anyway, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because, we both have opinions on that, but we'll leave that where it is. And, mate, knowing what you know now and all that you've been through, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, and would he listen?
I would say if you ever get in a police shooting, throw your phone in the ocean straight away. No, I would. Apart from that, I would say something that I've learned that it is through actually just doing because I grew up boxing, but recently a while back I did some BJJ, some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I suck at it. Not very good at it, which is fine, but.
Oh, you'll get better at it. I know you will.
One of the legend coaches, he says, like, you know, he told me that when you're going to start in the shittest position you're going to be, and your goal shouldn't be to get into the best position. Your goal should just be get into a slightly less shit position. So what do you have to do? Slight change to make your position slightly less shit. When you get there, do it again. What can I do to make my position slightly less shit? And if you keep doing that, eventually you'll get to a point where you go, oh, I'm not in that. My position's getting... It's not that shit anymore, it's alright. So what can I do to make it a bit more alright? And then eventually you're going, oh, what can I do to make my position better? What can I make my position that's already good better? So just those minor adjustments to go from... Stop trying to go from like the shitty... So that's how I've gotten to where I'm at now. These minor adjustments to go from a shitty position to a slightly less shit position. Little baby steps to go less shit, and then eventually you're not doing less shit anymore. You're going from a good position to a better position. That's what I would say. I'll be like, be patient and take the baby steps and be smart about it.
And would you say too that it's like, mate, I have to say your resilience is like its next level, is that you're going to face some challenges, but you're going to come through better and stronger?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, and again, even when I was 18, I had that idea of always just putting myself in, I felt like a need to be uncomfortable to grow. So it was there.
You're not doing that, you're not growing.
And consistently to do that.
And for you now, like, what advice, because I'm sure you have people come to you and say, you know, I'm thinking of joining the emergency services. Like, what advice would you give to them joining the police and the shit you've gone through, but also the wider emergency services?
Well, I think for all of them, all emergency services are such an honourable and such a good job, and I would never tell anyone not to do it. I think they should do it. My only advice would be is that to be good enough at your job so that if what happens to me happens to you, you can still get through it. Because like the anti-cops threw everything at me. I got no convictions. And I don't have the job. I could have handled that better, but I'm still free. So you can still do it and do good. Like, I'd say don't let the bosses scare you. You know, don't let the loud noises scare you. Just do it. Be strong and be good.
And do the job to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Great advice, mate. And what advice would you give your fellow brothers and sisters in blue if they faced a similar situation as you have copped with the backlash?
This is not even a joke. Throw your phone in the ocean straight away. Last time, a bit of a joke. This time, not a joke.
Yeah.
Actions on critical incident. Phone is getting in the washing machine or lost. Secondary to that, I would say the strength training of your head would be you got to figure out who you are. Like, you need to know. So, like, it's like, you know, when people leave their job, they've got that loss of identity.
Loss of identity and purpose, yeah.
If you figure out who you are, and you can do that in different ways, you just got to find out how to figure out who you are. You need to find your community. No matter where you go, no matter where you move, if you get moved to a new place, you got to know who you are, find a community, and you need to just do the right things. You know, that eat right, sleep right. But I think that finding your community, no matter where you are, is such an important thing. Having that support base, because the support base that I had throughout Australia, and you know, whenever I go to a new town, I got to find a new gym, and you can start creating a community that way.
Of course, yeah.
I think that is the right thing to do. Find out who you are and find a community, and find purpose if you can. But sometimes
hard to find
Sometimes it's hard to find it.
Yeah.
So get a dog, and then your purpose is to walk the dogs.
That's it. Mate, 100%. And in your opinion, what more needs to be done to support first responders, particularly in addressing the trauma that they face day to day? What more needs to be done?
I think it was nearly what we were talking about earlier, the trauma. I think the biggest thing that's hurting the first responders, especially because I can speak about police,
Of course you can.
more so than anyone else, but the biggest thing that's hurting the police right now, I think, is not so much obviously there's trauma on the jobs, but I really think it's coming from the pressure that's being put on by the bosses and the rotten culture that's within the police force. So if we could address that, and it's similar to what we spoke about before, if the police could make their culture and their career cycle more healthy by having a deployment routine, by having a decompression period, by having a build-up period, by potentially putting PT as physical training as part of your daily shift work, militarize it find the most positive areas from the military and utilize them. I think that would really, really help the police force. I think it would take someone exceptionally strong and brave to put that in practice. It's a big change, and it would need it would initially be a big manning issue, but like we said before, there's a manning issue right now. But if you keep doing the same thing and just keep pumping in up recruitment numbers and lowering the bar or getting people from overseas, the revolving doors is just going to keep happening.
100%. And for you, mate, we both have a big interest in transition, and in your opinion, what more needs to be done in that space to help first responders and police and other first responders transition out of the job and find purpose once they leave the job?
Yeah, it's hard, but I think I don't know. I haven't thought too much about that, about transitioning, because the main thing that I've thought about is there wouldn't be such a need to transition if the culture within was improved. But in transitioning, I think you could do something outlandish. If you just had a recruitment company that I think people want to do when they get out. A lot of lads that I know would happy to be mow lawns for 5 hours a day. Or 8 hours a day, just to have something to do. No matter, they just want to work. Lads and lasses just want to work. So it doesn't matter what the job is, but if there was just a large organisation putting forward that was yep, we have these jobs, you can be the council, all these council jobs, but there's a pathway from the cops or from the first responder thing. There's a pathway directly into this organisation. Boom, train you up. Here's your job. Labouring, anything. But if there was a secure pathway, an organised pathway that would get you there, rather than going through your regular recruitment firms and stuff like that.
And I think too is that, as you are, you're proud of being a police officer, but it doesn't define who you are.
Yeah, it's just a job.
It's just a job.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught up in the you make it us and them, and no one understands me because I'm a policeman. I can't talk to my wife about this. If you increase your communication skills, you can talk to your wife or your husband will understand what you go through. Everyone feels the same feelings based on different catalysts. So
everyone knows when you've had a shit day.
Yeah, just explain it better. Just I didn't really learn how to communicate till how old am I? 34. When I started dating my missus now, so only a couple of years ago. So we're freshly learned communicators.
Yeah.
But doing good,
angel, mate. She's an angel.
She's an angel, and she's patient. So if you just learn to communicate with people. It's just a job at the end of the day. It's a hectic job and sometimes a crazy job, but it's just a job.
Yeah, 100%. And I've got a couple final questions, mate, before we finish, and it's just sitting with you. It's just been amazing to sit here and just really break it down. And cut through that red tape that and the media spin and everything, and so it's been awesome. But mate, looking back now and all that you've been through, would you still join the army, and would you still join the police today?
Yeah, 100%. If I was anonymous, like if I got a clean slate, I'd 100% do the same thing again. 100%.
Because it set you up to who you are today. And
yeah, I think it's the army grew me up, and the police, I just think the police is one of the best jobs you can ever have. I think you're doing, at the core of it, you are the person that's called to help people when they need help. I think there's like, I think nothing better than that. Like, so for me, like obviously there's like other people that are doing it in different responder areas. Like even you go to doctors and stuff, they're doing wild stuff. Ambos, fireys, nurses. There's so many, even support workers. Like support workers, there's so many support workers out there that go to the jobs every day to help people. For me, with my skill set and my passions, policing was that for me. So yeah, 100%.
And you said it in earlier on in the podcast, mate. You know, even just going and helping feed the homeless, that's giving of service. At the end of the day, service is service, regardless what it is.
Yeah.
That, you know, and I think that's been a big cultural change here in Australia. Is, you know, the heart of a volunteer. We used, like, you know, that was what our culture was.
Yeah.
And that seems, and financial pressures, life has got busier now. People don't seem to. But I feel that's it's something that we've lost.
Yeah.
And, you know, but as you say, service is service, regardless of how you look at it. Just be of service and be a good human being. That's
100%.
That's it. And, mate, what are your plans moving forward in the future now? What do you hope to do into the future?
I'm super boring now. I just got, like, obviously it's the missus, the dog, so I've got my business set up, so I just lay low and work. Work, get to the beach, get to the gym. Eventually we'll have little kids, and I have no big plans.
just be you, mate. Now,
if someone wants to pay me a heap of money to write a book, I'll write a book.
Oh, mate, I think it'll be a bestseller, that's for sure. Like, you know.
I'll draw some pictures in it with crayons.
Yeah, but mate, it as I say, it's just been an absolute, as I say, to sit with you. We've, you know, mate, I think we've done well because you have. I've nearly cried, but you haven't. You stayed staunch, and I'm happy to admit that on the podcast, mate. And, you know, and your missus, you know.
I only cry when Dustin Poirier retires.
Yeah. So
I've got all my tears out.
Yeah, but mate, it's been an absolute, you know, as I say, to sit with you and get this story that, as you say, and you said it on the podcast, mate, there's going to be backlash with this, but
100%.
Yeah, but mate, as I say, stand for something or stand for nothing, and you know it's time that this did come. Like this comes out.
Yeah, brother, and I really, really appreciate you being strong enough to listen to it, to get the story out, to help, because I know why you're doing it as well. You're doing it to try and help the boys and girls still out there in all the first responder jobs. So,
100%.
Man, I appreciate you putting yourself out there to get the backlash that's going to come, but I know why you're doing it, and it's the right reasons.
100%.
So thank you
mate,
you for that.
No, you're welcome, and mate, thank you for serving our beautiful country, mate, and thank you for the work that you do now that people don't see for first responders and veterans, and it's around mental health, and for all that you've been through, mate. And as I say, it's just thank you for coming on True Blue and sharing your story. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. See you on the front line.